jury will not be sequestered.
I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin.
In the Weinstein case, fellow silence breakers and any
Selection is moving along here.
I'll read the verdict, says the Jesse Weber. Thanks for joining us.
We don't tend to see it as raw as this.
Good evening and welcome.
My name is Bob Bianchi. I'll be taking it at 3 o'clock a lot on the plate today. The Michael Barisone case out of Morris County, New Jersey is day 9. 2 counts of attempted murder. The defense has called a number of witnesses. We're expecting that case will resume at 1:30 Eastern time. William Husel, the former doctor accused of killing 14 patients. Closings are expected on Monday, but we'll cover some of the most important aspects of that case, as well as the federal sentencing sex case cult trial at the Sarah Lawrence College. We have a guilty verdict. That was for Lawrence Ray, who was accused of extortion of young women while he was living in his daughter's college dorm. That was a crazy, twisty case. We'll have Adam Klasfeld that will talk to us about that. Florida versus Anthony Todt is another new case we're going to be covering out of Florida. 2019, killed his entire family, including 3 people, and stayed in the home while the bodies were decomposing. Obviously, a very sad and horrific case. And then, of course, we'll talk about the Amir Locke shooting case out of Minneapolis. No charges being filed against the police officer in that particular case. So a lot to discuss. But let's go to the Michael Barisone case, because we had 2 defense witnesses that were expert psychologists and psychiatric witnesses talking about Barisone's mental health prior to and leading up to the shooting. One of those individuals testifying for the defense was Charles Hassan. Let's take a listen to a little bit of his testimony as he discusses the state of mind of the defendant prior to the shooting.
In the discovery that you reviewed, did you discuss the fact that Lauren Canarak was tape recording Michael Barisone?
Yes.
And did you discuss what impact that recording was having on his mental state?
He was incredibly frightened. He had no refuge, no place to go where he felt safe. And he was very upset. He said, this is an example of a terrorist, you know? And he was frightened, you know, tremendous amount. And it upset him that she had a post that she referred to him and the other people there scurrying around, going into their car, you know, to speak to each other. But he was just very frightened.
What impact does someone thinking, whether it's true or not, that every word that you say is being listened to?
Judge, I'm going to object to the general nature of the question.
I think it's a little broad. Rephrase it, please.
What effect did Michael Barisone thinking that every word that he spoke to anyone was being recorded by someone that he was afraid of?
It made him super paranoid, that everything he was doing was being monitored. Not only being recorded, he thought that he was being filmed.
Did you review posts with him where Lauren Canarak was telling people on Facebook that Michael Barisone was threatening her life?
That super frightened him, because he has distorted thinking. So here's what his thinking was like. He said to me that the Parkland shooting person stated that he was bullied. Then he said, Canarak said, she's bullied. So then he said, my conclusion is she's going to kill me just like the Parkland shooter. That's how his deduction was off. But that's how he came up with that.
Did you discuss with him numerous contacts that he made with people who Canarak had previously posted things on Facebook about?
Yes.
For instance, the name Staggart and Parkinson.
I remember that.
Okay, now, I don't want you to say what those posts contained, but did you discuss those posts with Michael Barisone?
Yes.
And what did he say about those posts, and what was their effect on his mental state?
Well, the effect was it made him even more frightened. He saw how other people were treated, and he thought that there was a greater danger. And he actually admitted that to me. So I asked him about, like, you know, how things transpired to cause him all this difficulty. And he says, well, it was the pattern of everything that came his way. He looked up, he got information on Canarak, her behavior, and everything together made him more and more frightened. But he felt as if there was a realistic threat out there.
Now, did you discuss with him leaving his residence a week or so before the incident?
Yes.
And what did he indicate to you was the reason that he left?
He feared for his life.
Who was he living there with?
With Mary Haskins, and I think for a time her son.
And where did he go after he fled his residence?
He went to the, I don't know if it's the proper term, the recreation room at the stable. It was a large room that was furnished, that had a kitchen area there and place to sleep, and he moved in there.
Based on your clinical interviews, the psychological testing, and the information that you reviewed in the record, did you form an opinion with regards to Michael Barisone's state of mind at the time of the incident?
Yes, I did.
And is that opinion to a degree of psychological medical certainty?
Yes, it is.
What is your opinion with regards to Michael Barisone's state of mind at the time of this incident?
At the time of the shooting, he suffered from a mental disorder, a psychotic break, a delusional disorder, which degraded his thinking to such an extent that he did not know what he was doing was wrong.
All right, Lisa Lockwood is with us, a crime analyst, former SWAT member, police officer. Lisa, welcome back. Good to see you. This witness was interesting to me. Yeah, sure. Based on what this witness seemed to be both testifying to self-defense and a psychiatric condition, talking about his fear and what led up to his fear. And then he kind of went into, at the end, this delusional disorder. So kind of that witness kind of encompassed both of the defenses in my mind. But are these fears enough in your mind to get to the insanity piece of this case where they would not know the difference between right or wrong? Or does the testimony come out in your mind as being calculated?
When we look at insanity cases, we start to think about what led up to it. And him saying that he had this mental break during that incident makes sense in the fact of all the information that led up to it, all of the bullying, all of the back and forth that they had together, his delusional beliefs that she was going to kill him like the Parkland shooter had done. He got a weapon. So you have to think about, was this premeditated? Was the intention to go there and shoot her that day? Or was his intention to go there to have resolution? So where did the mental break happen? So that's the hard part in all of this. Can you have self-defense and a mental break happening if you're the one showing up with a gun?
Yeah, those two defense claims, self-defense and insanity, have been debated greatly by my colleagues here in New Jersey. I mean, I'm just literally a mile or two away from where this is all occurring. And there is case law that allows that. And it's interesting how it's coming into play in a very sophisticated and nuanced way in this case. Let's listen to a little bit of the cross-examination of Prosecutor Christopher Schellhorn of Dr. Husel.
You took the results and you put them into this particular program to score it, correct?
Yes.
The program gave you a number of various information, clinical features, treatment considerations, possible diagnoses, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't include all of those things in your report.
I would never include
Correct.
everything in the report. I would use my judgment on the report. The test gave two things. It gave validity scales and it also gave clinical scales. The validity scales said that the test was accurate.
And where the results of the PAI that you have in front of you as S46 didn't match your ultimate diagnosis, you didn't put anything in your report about why you ignored that or why you distinguished it.
I indicated that I'm not putting down malingering, given the fact that there's no evidence of feigning on this test. Because I used more accurate cut scores.
So where it says there's the possibility of malingering, you're saying that feigning is not indicated at all by this test? You indicated that when you gave Michael Barisone the test of memory malingering, that he had a poor score.
He had a score of 41 on trial 2 and trial 4.
And I think you indicated that to the jury on direct examination, that that score is poor.
It's on, yes, a score under 45 is considered a problem, with the exception if someone has some kind of like brain injury, a TBI or something of that sort.
And you didn't note any issues like that with Mr. Barisone?
Well, I did write, after I considered that he has some problem with visual memory, and he has some problem with attention. And I also mentioned that an odd finding was that on the VIP, which is a very superior test, on the nonverbal part, there was an indication of a problem sustaining attention. So I hypothesized that there's a possibility that the 41 score was due to the fact of his difficulty in different areas.
Now, you just testified that a score under 45 is a problem.
Yes.
I think that was your exact words. And you indicated that Michael Barisone scored a 41 on the test of memory malingering, correct?
Yes.
That was on 2 of the trials, correct?
Trial 2 and the recognition trial.
His score on trial 1 was a 35.
Yes.
You didn't include that in your report.
You don't, that's not how you analyze it.
I didn't ask that question, doctor.
You would never include that.
Well, a score of 41 is actually indicative of someone who is likely malingering, correct?
Possibly so, if they don't have any other difficulty that's maybe impacting the score.
Lisa, let's unpack this a little bit. Malingering is in the Statistical Diagnostic Manual of Mental Health Illnesses, and it's actually something that forensic psychologists and experts are supposed to use. What that word means is an over-magnification of or lying, for lack of a better expression, in the context of a legal matter, and that these tests, they're supposed to kind of try to score whether or not the person is giving by asking repeated questions in different ways, whether or not they are lying on it in order to fool the test. The prosecutor bringing out, and rightly so, good area of cross-examination, that he did not indicate in his report that he fell below the problematic range 45 to 41. How damaging was this to the expert's credibility?
Well, thank you for explaining that in more detail, because I know with interrogations, when the police officers are using the read technique and looking at different variables to find out if somebody's being deceptive, psychologists and psychiatrists also have their measures of doing that. That goes a lot deeper than just the interview and also lie detector tests. So polygraphs. In this particular case, knowing that 2 of those tests separately done put him in the area of feigning, not telling the truth, is problematic for the defense. No doubt about it. I think it was great the prosecution was able to bring that up and trying to determine why that second test, which was even worse than the first one, wasn't brought into evidence, that he had to go and look for that information himself.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you have an insanity defense and a self-defense claim, so you need psychiatric testimony, it would seem to me, in a case like this, especially with respect to the insanity defense. But, with expert testimony, you got to be very careful that those experts are putting everything in to avoid the very kind of cross-examination you saw that, as well as that they've reviewed all of the materials that the defense has provided. In another expert that the defense presented, this is not the defense attorney's fault, or I'm not saying it's anybody's fault for that matter, but it came out on cross-examination that the expert had not reviewed all the materials because it would have been thousands of pages. These are the kind of areas that commonly I would use. How much of the material did you look at? How much material did the defense attorney give you? Don't you think, well, material is important? You want to have a fuller picture. You can't say more data is bad, could you? That kind of thing. And yet you forgot to put into your report, it did not include, or in fact, you didn't even review information that may have been relevant to your opinion. So sometimes these experts can whipsaw back on a lawyer. I'm not saying that's happened here, but what are your thoughts about that in terms of what impact they may have on the jury hearing it?
It can come across as somebody attempting to just deceive the process. That would be the impact when you have the prosecution come forward and say, we were short this information. Why wasn't this put forward? What is trying to be hidden and brought to the surface? So the impact would be just that. Now we have more information, and that's what the prosecution's job is to go ahead and attempt to debunk the findings of the expert based on what was brought forward. So that's the potential in all of this. And when I look at it, I think that was great. The prosecution did bring that up, and they have a clear definition of what malingering is.
Yeah, and of course, you always get into that argument, so I can't fault the defense, or even if the state puts its experts on in rebuttal, that the doctors say that these are measurements. They're only one of a number of things that they're evaluating, and I think that is going to come across to the jury as well. What the jury will decide with respect to that, obviously, is in their province. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We come back on the other end. This Anthony Todt case, killing of his wife and his 3 children and their dog. I mean, really bad as it gets. We're going to talk about that on the other end. Please stay with us.
Calibrate is a doctor-guided weight loss program that combines virtual doctor visits, FDA-approved medication, and one-on-one video coaching to reset your metabolic system. Get back in control of your weight and your health with Calibrate. Sign up today at joincalibrate.com.
Cover it up. That's what I did when I started losing my hair. Then I realized I could actually do something. Now I use Keeps, the easiest way to keep my hair. And it only costs $1 a day, which means no more covering up. Get started at keeps.com.
This is Marianne's first time visiting Paris.
Madame, où allez-vous?
Before Marianne packed her bags, before she attempted her first sentence in French, before she completed her first 15-minute lesson,
yes,
she downloaded Babbel. Babbel helped unlock her lifelong dream of learning French. She started speaking in just 3 weeks. So when it came time to tell the cab driver to take her to the Hotel Pierre,
j'aimerais aller à l'Hôtel Pierre.
Oh, c'est très bien. J'espère que votre voyage s'est bien passé.
150 language experts and educators designed Babbel to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language. Babbel focuses on natural conversation. You'll remember what you learn, and you can speak and pronounce with confidence. Start speaking a new language in 3 weeks. Try it for free at Babbel.com.
What are my stats? Well, my investments are tracking up, my house will be paid off in 12 years, and I'll retire at 61. Take control of your finances with Quicken. Try risk-free for 30 days.
Baby, you're a perfect 10. I wanna get in. Can I get down so I can win? I like the way you work it. No diggity. I got to bag it up. I like the way you work it.
From the Olympics to an attempted murder trial, horse trainer Michael Barisone is set to stand trial for the shooting of his former student after her and her boyfriend allegedly refused to leave his farm. Barisone called the police multiple times before the shooting, claiming that his life was in danger.
I have a family, and we are in fear for our lives.
Was the shooting in self-defense? A jury will have to decide. Watch gavel-to-gavel coverage of the former Olympian accused in the Olympic horse trainer shooting trial on the Law and Crime Network.
A beard should be many things. Thick, full, soft, and flake-free. But getting there can be a struggle. That's why the experts at Scotch Porter created their beard care products. They condition and moisturize every beard, promoting growth and thickness with clean, quality ingredients like white willow bark and biotin. And that scent? Get your beard in check and your confidence on point with Scotch Porter.
I'm Dan Abrams, and you're watching Law and Crime.
All right, on Monday, we're going to have a new trial here at the Law and Crime Network. Anthony Todt, accused of killing his wife and 3 children, 4 years, 11 years, and 13 years old, as well as the family dog. Actually, in his home as the bodies are decomposing. A lot of legal maneuvering going on with respect to this case. Let's listen to our very own Jesse Weber as he breaks it down for us.
A Connecticut man will soon face a Florida jury after authorities say he killed his family inside their Florida home near Walt Disney World in late 2019. Anthony Todt is facing 4 murder charges and an animal cruelty charge for allegedly killing his wife, 42-year-old Megan Todt, their 3 kids, 13-year-old Alexander, 11-year-old Tyler, and 4-year-old Zoe, and the family dog, Breezy. The couple met in high school. They got married, started a family, and a business, living full-time in small-town Colchester, Connecticut. But it all came crashing down when, according to court documents, financial troubles started catching up with Todt. Federal authorities say they discovered alleged fake claims to Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance companies from Todt's physical therapy business. On January 13, 2020, federal authorities and local deputies arrived at the Florida home following calls from family members and the owner of their complex to do a welfare check. With an eviction notice on the front door, inside they found the blanket-wrapped bodies of his wife, children, and family dog. Authorities say the physical therapist lived alongside their rotting bodies for weeks. Toxicology reports later revealed Todt's wife and children were all drugged with Benadryl. The medical examiner determined Megan, Alexander, and Tyler had also been stabbed. Alexander's autopsy described that his feet were mummified as the victims were in an early state of decomposition. The bodies had been locked in the home for so long, no blood was left for testing. But the medical examiner determined their cause of death was homicidal violence of unspecified means in association with antihistamine toxicity. Todt had also taken Benadryl, he says, in an attempt to commit suicide. Todt was indicted on 4 counts of murder. In his post-arrest interviews, Todt reportedly confessed to the killings. A judge recently ruled one confession will be kept out of trial proceedings after Todt's legal team argued he had Benadryl in his system and didn't understand he was waiving his Miranda rights. His defense attorney also argued the interviewing deputy recited an incomplete Miranda warning. Detectives say, though, in another interrogation, Todt repeated his involvement in the deaths. The judge ruled that confession can be used at trial.
The court finds it to be clear that the issue of diminished capacity is inadmissible in the state of Florida in the guilt phase, and the court is going to grant the state's motion. There is case law that supports that any medications that Mr. Todt was on at the time of his confessions should be considered if they are established by competent evidence.
Todt blamed his wife for the slangs in jailhouse letters to his father. His trial was initially scheduled for last year, but has been delayed several times. Prosecutors are no longer seeking the death penalty, so Todt faces life in prison if convicted. For the Law and Crime Network, I'm Jesse Weber.
Lisa, you're a perfect guest to have on the show. You and myself have unique insights into these kind of heinous crimes in our former careers, and even myself now as a defense lawyer. There are some, no matter how many homicide cases I've handled as a prosecutor, that just come across your desk and you shake your head. It's just like really brutal and tragic, especially when it comes down to family members and killing a dog. I mean, it almost screams out insanity, right? It almost screams out that somebody would not do this unless they weren't in the right mind. But the court is not allowing anything about its mental health condition to come in because they did not file an insanity defense in this case. Do you think that was a mistake?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what they would have needed that to go forward with it. We look at cases like this that are so horrific. Here's somebody who was functioning in society, who had a nice home and a nice family, decided to do something illegal. The bricks were falling down on his whole nefarious activity, and now it was a time to make this decision. And a lot of times, the man and head of the household, instead of the shame coming forward of what would happen to him if he were implicated in all of this, the shame is so great that they take out their entire family. And I believe that this was the case. Instead of just killing himself and going on and allowing his family to move forward. I mean, it is horrific. So to answer your question, yes, they should have permitted that going forward, but we know everything leading up to it was, I believe, in a lot of these cases, is the shame of them being exposed.
Lisa, as a prosecutor, having tried death penalty cases, not a big fan of it after, seeing the judicial system in operation with respect to it. But it is the law in the state of Florida. And of course, prosecutors weigh aggravating and mitigating factors to determine whether they're going to file for a death penalty case. But if prosecutors believe there wasn't a mental health issue here, which would be a mitigating factor, given the brutality of this, the age of the victims, and the other aggravating factors, this is kind of one of the reasons why I have problems with death penalties. Which cases are chosen and which one aren't seem to be arbitrary to me. Would you consider this the kind of case that, if possible, you would file a death penalty on? Or if not, why not, in your mind, did they not file for this?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. And I've had different views throughout my life and through the years regarding death penalty. I believed in it for a very long time. And then I went to the other side when we had cases like Project Innocence and DNA was coming forward and there were false confessions. There were just so many cases of people who were wrongfully convicted and then end up on death row, and many have died. Mm-hmm. And later on, we come to find out that they shouldn't have, based on new evidence coming forward. In this case, I think we are cut and dry in what we see and what the police were able to put together with the crime scene, with the DNA, with the fact that he was there, and there was a confession going forward. But if it was a personal opinion for me, this would be an absolute case to go forward with when you selfishly wipe out your entire family because of something that you did illegally.
Yeah, I've kind of had that same journey you have had with the death penalty, and it's the seeing the system and the way it operates or doesn't operate sometimes is very concerning to me when the ultimate penalty is being given. But nevertheless, Florida doesn't seem to have that problem. In many cases, they chose not to do it. In this particular one, interesting fact. Thank you, Lisa. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back on the other end with the Barisone case, and very interesting testimony from a Dr. Simmering, who's a very well-regarded expert in the state of New Jersey, called by the defense in the case. Did he ring the bell for the defense, or did the prosecutor score points on Dr. Simmering? We'll be back on the other end with that.
Want payday to come a little faster?
I get paid 2 days before everyone else. I love getting paid on a Wednesday.
Want to say goodbye to those long check cashing lines?
I can never see myself standing in a line at a bank again.
Get your own NetSpend prepaid MasterCard with direct deposit. Your money loads straight into your NetSpend card. Shop online, pay bills, buy groceries. Use anywhere debit MasterCard is accepted.
I use it every day for every purchase. I use it to pay my rent.
It's not a credit card. It's convenient, and you can even earn payback rewards on many of your purchases. That's money right back into your card account.
From eating at major restaurants to sending my mom flowers, I get cash back.
Because this is not a credit card, with NetSpend you pay no interest fees, late fees, or activation fees. There's no credit check to get started and no cost to order.
I use my NetSpend card for everything.
Be one of the first 200 callers and choose your card color. 1-800-866-0189. That's 1-800-866-0189. Get paid up to 2 days faster with NetSpend.
Letting go of my diamond ring was really hard, but selling it for the best price was simple with Worthy.com. They evaluate your jewelry to help you understand what it's actually worth. Then they auction it to their network of professional buyers. Get more for your jewelry with Worthy.com.
Strength doesn't belong to a chosen few. It resides in all of us. And when we find it, we discover our body is capable of amazing things. Things others could only imagine. Strength changes everything. So own it and see how far it takes you. Tonal, be your strongest.
I love Made In. I love what Made In represents. With the product, you could tell that there's extreme craftsmanship.
You would think a pan is a pan until Made In came along, and I went, wow, these things are something better.
I use Made In both at home and here at Craft in New York City. They're beautifully made and will help you take your cooking to the next level.
Those are the pans that we use at Alinea. We're going to have the best pans in the world at one of the best restaurants in the world.
Something's bothering my stomach. I could cut out a lot of foods or figure out what's actually bothering me before removing and adding back. I'll do that.
So I have peppers, tomatoes, parsley.
What's that one?
That's my credit. It gets lots of sun, water, and I even sing to it every day. But it never grows.
You need Credit Sesame. With Credit Sesame, you get your free score right away and see steps you can take to improve it. Daily score refreshes to help track your progress, and they'll even pay you for growing your score.
Credit Sesame? Wow. Maybe I could start growing my savings there.
Get your free credit score today.
We all know that movement is like medicine, but getting the movement you need to feel better can be a challenge. Now you can keep fit while you sit with QB, the world's leading compact seated elliptical. QB gives you active sitting, letting you burn calories and keep moving in an easy and low-impact way, all while you work, read, or watch TV. QB was named a top 10 gift by Time Magazine and has been featured all over the world. It's whisper quiet while it works your abs and core, hip flexors, glutes, quads, hamstrings, and calves.
QB is a lifesaver for me.
Here's your answer to your problem.
I feel young again.
Join the hundreds of thousands of people moving more with QB. Call to find out how to get your QB with free shipping and a 30-day completely risk-free trial. You'll also get this QB workout mat free. Now keep fit while you sit with QB.
To order, call 800-289-2402. That's 800-289-2402. Call now.
I'm Jesse Weber, and you're watching Law and Crime.
All right, Michael Barisone, okay, out of Morristown, New Jersey. What the argument is here that in the county courthouse, 2 doctors have testified for the defense so far. One of them is Stephen Simmering, a very well-known psychiatrist that's used often by both the prosecution and the defense in cases. He's now testifying for the defense, testifying about the troubled past that the defendant had, as well as his state of mind leading up to the actual shooting. Let's take a listen.
What I learned from her is that he came from a family which was emotionally and physically abusive. That as a boy growing up, his mother, according to her, was very selfish and very abusive to him. His mother, by the way, passed away in 2014. His father died in 2019, just after his arrest. Ms. Picardo remembered that in terms of the history, that one of the maternal grandparents suffered from depression, and she believed that one of the grandparents required shock treatment, electroconvulsive therapy.
And why is that relevant, Doc?
Well, depression runs in families, and one of my diagnoses, of my 2 diagnoses, one of them is persistent depressive disorder or chronic depression.
And so that was relevant with regards to your diagnosis regarding the depressive diagnosis?
That's correct. Just one more piece of evidence. People with depression often have depressions in the family. Some do not. Many do.
All right. And what else, if anything, do you rely on?
She told me, and this is even more important, Ms. Picardo said that she had treated Mr. Barisone on and off for 20 years. Never consistently, but on and off for depression and anxiety. And he would make appointments with her and see her when he felt he needed care. She described him to me as, this is a direct quote, very troubled. She thought he was at a considerable risk for suicide, and she believed that even before the current events. He expressed to her, after he spoke to her after the incident, that he had lost everything. She also noted that throughout the years, in addition to being depressed, he appeared to be paranoid, by which she meant unduly suspicious of the motives of others.
Now, in your report, did you discuss with Michael Barisone what he believed was going to happen to him after DCP&P came to the farm?
Well, yes, he was convinced the children would be taken away, the children would be harmed, the children would be taken away, and this was now on top of all the other fears that the horses would be harmed by Canarak and Goodwin, that Canarak and Goodwin would take away his farm, take away his possessions, destroy his reputation in the equestrian community. So in addition to all these other fears of what Canarak and Goodwin were going to do to him,
all these fears, which had been built up in his paranoia, there was now a brand new fear that had never been there before. The DP and DCP&P were going to take away Mary Haskin Gray's children. And that was the last straw. There could have been other last straws, but that was the thing that immediately precipitated his arming himself to defend himself, driving down and having the confrontation.
And did he indicate to you what, if anything, he believed with regards to his personal safety and the safety of Mary Haskins?
They were frightened to death. He thought that Goodwin and Cataract were going to kill them.
In formulating your opinion, did any single document or statement control?
No. No, it was the buildup of thousands and thousands of documents over a period of years and really coming to fruition in the last few months before the shooting itself.
Did any single interview control what your opinion is here today?
No, it did not, and everyone who tried to intervene was impotent to do so, whether it was Mr. Tarshish, his lawyer, his girlfriend, family members. No one seemed to be able to get through to him as he became increasingly down the, let's say, the rabbit hole of this abject fear that Goodwin and Cataract were going to destroy him.
What are your opinions that you formed reviewing everything in its entirety?
Mr. Barisone, in my opinion, has two diagnoses to a reasonable degree of medical probability. And diagnoses are taken from what's called the DSM-5, which is the 5th edition of the Diagnostic Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. It's not a textbook, but it's a uniform set of criteria by which doctors will agree on diagnoses. So the first diagnosis is delusional disorder. And the second diagnosis is persistent depressive disorder. All right, these are two very different diagnoses, and really in psychiatry, somebody can have two diagnoses. Just like in internal medicine, you can have diabetes and asthma. The fact that you have one doesn't preclude the other. So people often have multiple diagnoses, and he has two. Delusional disorder, and the specific type is persecutory type, is the unreasonable belief to a delusional, unrealistic point of view that you are being conspired against, harmed, poisoned, and destroyed. Now, little asterisks, there are other kinds of delusional disorders. There's delusional disorder jealous type. That's not what he has. Jealous type is where you think that your spouse is having some kind of relationship with something that's completely unfeasible. But this is the most common kind of delusional disorder is persecutory type. It is in some regards like schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a well-known diagnosis of mental illness. It's the big daddy of mental illnesses. He does not have schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, someone is out of touch with reality. They're hearing voices, they're seeing things, they're hearing God talking to them, they are shouting, they're screaming. That's schizophrenia. Delusional disorder has only a piece of that in general his thinking is intact. In general, he's not screaming, he's not seeing things, but there are islands of his thinking which are contaminated by delusional thinking. That is, everything that had to do with Lauren Cataract and her family and friends became delusional. He had unrealistic, outlandish beliefs about the things that she would do or could do to him, and no one was able to reason him out of it.
Lisa Lockwood, what do you think about that? He's essentially saying not a schizophrenic type, but kind of a personality disorder, which confirms what the other mental health expert for the defense said delusional disorder was also diagnosed, where he has islands of thinking where he's delusional and irrational, the persecutory type, persecution type. Is this in terms of supporting the other expert? Are we moving along, inching away towards the ability not to know the difference between right and wrong because of this isolated islands of thinking that we're delusional?
I think so. So having the corroboration between the two of them, showing the history of the depression, knowing that he did have mental disorders in the past, he had been treated for many years, he had been medicated for many years, and he was exhibiting all of these by what he was putting in text, social media, and telling people around him. So we have evidence that he was suffering from it, no question about it. However, if
All right.
somebody were that delusional and thinking they're going to be killed, why would you put yourself in harm's way?
Okay, it's certainly a good question. I'm sure the jury will debate and it'll be argued in summations. Let's listen to a little bit of Prosecutor Shellhorn's cross-examination of Dr. Simon.
Do you ever use psychological tests as part of your examination process?
Yes, but I don't perform them. If I think psychological tests are helpful, I will call upon a psychologist colleague to perform the testing.
And you'd agree with me that even when you do use a psychological test, you would never render a diagnosis based on the test?
No, I would not.
Now, you indicated on direct examination that you rendered your diagnoses using the DSM?
Correct.
I'm just going to refer to it that way. I think at this point now the jury knows what we're talking about. But you would agree that any diagnosis in the DSM would not meet any particular legal standard?
That is correct. There is, in fact, a statement in DSM at the very beginning that says it in so many words that no diagnosis equates to any particular legal conclusion.
Would you agree with me that there's no memory disorder that's selective just for criminal behavior?
That is correct.
Now, you indicated that you diagnosed Mr. Barisone with depression disorder and delusion disorder.
Correct.
You would agree with me that depression disorder does not affect a person's ability to know right from wrong?
Well, counsel, that's a complex question. There are all kinds of levels of depression. I diagnosed him with persistent depressive disorder, which used to be called in the DSM-4 dysthymia, and prior to that used to be called minor depression or neurotic depression. It basically is a serious condition. It can lead to suicide, but it is not usually accompanied by psychosis. On the other hand, there are major depression disorders which can involve psychosis and delusional thinking, but that's not my diagnosis.
So in this case, your diagnosis of depression would not have affected Michael Barisone's ability to know right from wrong?
That is correct. I'm sorry, not directly. I think the chronic depression made him more vulnerable to be affected by all of these events, but it would not lead directly to his ability to know right from wrong, no.
Lisa, I was having a little difficulty hearing the end of that. It didn't sound good as far as the defense theory, because the prosecutors asked questions about the legal definition of insanity, the difference between right and wrong. What were your thoughts about how that expert responded to the question? Because the defense has to basically show that, and the prosecutor has to disprove it. Did the prosecutor do the job there?
He did. He actually tripped him up at the end when he said, you would say somebody with depression doesn't mean that they would not have the ability to know right from wrong. And initially, the expert agreed. Then he recanted and said, over the course of 20 years, having this depression, that doesn't mean that it's not possible. So that's a score for prosecution.
Yeah, interesting thought process here, because depending how the prosecutor feels they did on cross-examination of these witnesses, very well may affect if they call a rebuttal case at all and put on any mental health experts themselves. So the prosecutor's got to weigh, did I do enough damage with this expert on cross-examination, or should I put on a rebuttal case? And if I do, then you've got Mr. Belinkus doing the same thing to those experts. So right now, what do you think? Does the prosecutor think they've done enough damage, or do you expect to see a rebuttal case with their mental health experts?
I think just the nugget that we received right now was helpful. He wasn't insane based on the depression, but delusional disorder is a whole nother diagnosis that we know was confirmed by both of the experts. So I don't think that there was enough damage. I would recommend them to get their own expert.
Okay, interesting. We'll see what the tactical decisions are. That's surely going to be debated in the halls of the prosecutor's office, I can assure you, when they go over this testimony. Okay, we're going to take a break right now. The Amir Locke, the shooting death of Amir Locke, no charges filed against the police on this matter. We're going to talk about that on the other end of the break as we wait for Barisone to start. back at 1:30 Eastern Time. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us here on our continued live coverage of the Derek Chauvin trial.
Find the defendant guilty.
Brooklyn Center, a young man was shot and killed by a police officer.
I just know that I hurt her by doing that. I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Kyle Rittenhouse is going to take the stand.
You should have come and asked.
3 men face life in prison if convicted in the death of 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery.
Greg McMichael said, "Stop, I'll blow your head off."
Robert Durst's lawyers have repeatedly asked for a mistrial.
I did not kill Susan Berman, but if I had, I would lie about it.
I'm Dan Abrams.
I'm Terry Austin.
I'm Brian Buckmeyer.
I'm Brian Ross.
I'm Jesse Weber.
And you're watching Law and Crime.
Letting go of my diamond ring was really hard, but selling it for the best price was simple with Worthy.com. They evaluate your jewelry to help you understand what it's actually worth. Then they auction it to their network of professional buyers. Get more for your jewelry with Worthy.com.
Calibrate is a doctor-guided weight loss program that combines virtual doctor visits, FDA-approved medication, and one-on-one video coaching to reset your metabolic system. Get back in control of your weight and your health with Calibrate. Sign up today at joincalibrate.com.
What are my stats? Well, my investments are tracking up, my house will be paid off in 12 years, and I'll retire at 61. Take control of your finances with Quicken. Try risk-free for 30 days.
Medical school was very stressful. I lost a lot of hair during that time. Nutrafol is 100% drug-free and it's natural, both safe and effective. You can't argue with clinical proof.
Start your hair growth journey at Nutrafol.com.
Does shopping for bladder control products have you feeling like you need someone to be on the lookout for you? Now you have your privacy back. We're HDIS, and we home deliver bladder control products directly to you. We're always on the lookout for you. You get free shipping in plain, unmarked boxes. So your private matters, stay private. We understand how you feel. For over 35 years, we've delivered bladder control products to millions of Americans, just like you. You don't have to worry about incontinence any longer. Call now for your free product sample pack and over $45 in money-saving coupons. At HDIS, we're always in stock. We carry all brands in hundreds of styles and sizes. You'll be sure to get what you need, guaranteed.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog and $45 in money-saving coupons and free product samples, call 800-791-6037. That's 800-791-6037.
I'm Brian Buckmeyer, and you're watching Law and Crime.
All right, we are back in Minneapolis again, where the police department is under scrutiny for the shooting death of Amir Locke, who was 22 years old. Back in February, there was a no-knock search warrant. Once again, Breonna Taylor kind of scenario. No charges were filed here. Shots were fired seconds after the police entered the location. They indicated that while Amir Locke was lying down from underneath a blanket, he pulled the gun out. This was a homicide investigation involving his cousin. That's the reason for the no-knock search warrant. The victim was Amir Locke legally in possession of a weapon. So let's take a listen to Keith Ellison. We all know him from George Floyd fame and other cases, as he describes why it is they made the decisions that they did not to charge.
This is the kind of work that we have to do, but I want to just note a few things. Amir Locke's life mattered. At 22 years old, he was only starting out. He had a job. He was making ends meet. He dreamed of being an entrepreneur. He was interested in real estate and branding his own business. He was about to move to Dallas to start a music career, as his father had before him here in Minnesota. Amir came from a loving family. His mother, Karen, and his father, Andre, and many other family members and friends who loved him dearly. He had family in the military and in law enforcement, and he admired members of law enforcement. According to news reports, Amir's parents counseled him about how to handle interactions with the police. Keep your hands visible. Don't make any sudden movements. One thing Amir was not a suspect. Our investigation found no evidence that he had any role in the homicide investigation that brought the police to his door at 6:48 on February 2nd. Amir was a victim. He never should have been called a suspect. The role that County Attorney Freeman and I took on was to determine whether the current law permitted us to file criminal charges in Amir's death. And in so doing, we had to evaluate all the evidence to Minnesota's use of force statute, which is rooted on a 33-year-old Supreme Court precedent called Graham versus Connor. As we announced this morning, we have determined that under the precedent and the laws that we have, we cannot file criminal charges. Current law only allows us to evaluate the case from the perspective of a reasonable police officer. And that language is from the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and relevant cases and statutes. We're not allowed to evaluate the case from the perspective of the victim. With all of the available evidence, we would not be able to prove in court that Officer Henneman's use of force was not authorized under the law beyond a reasonable doubt. It would be unethical for us to file charges in a case in which we know that we will not be able to prevail because the law does not support the charges.
Lisa, Keith Ellison certainly citing what the law is, but I'd love to have a long time to be able to talk about this. You being a former SWAT officer, listen, we're here again at another no-knock warrant. And there's reasons why there are no-knock warrants, but we're back into another situation where who knows what the person listening to people, you know as well as I do how aggressive that entry is. You're trained on making it aggressive and disorienting. And so a person's lying in bed, has people busting through the door, their confused are waking up. It always seems to be a toxic recipe here. Is there a better way to do these things, irrespective of whether it's legally justified or not? It just seems like, to me, when I've been on the scene watching these tactical entries as a lawyer, and I'm not a law enforcement officer, I kind of cringed with the manner of force that was going in there. And I understood why for officer safety. Talk to us about all this.
Yeah, it really is kind of like going into a wartime scenario when you're busting into somebody's home with weapons drawn, with the expectation that you will be fired upon and your life is in grave danger. There's a lot of effort behind the scenes putting a search warrant together. Even more so, this is not a drug search warrant, this is a homicide search warrant. So somebody is known in that home to be a suspect for killing someone. The expectation of guns is going to be there. So you need a dynamic, no-knock entry in order to have the element of surprise. But it goes two ways, twofold. Now you know that guns are there. There's going to be potential for you to get into a gun battle. And more, as our country has been evolving, more and more people are getting guns and protecting themselves. So police officers are also aware of this, going into the door, trying to protect their team and arrest the suspect who's involved in this case. Poor Amir, I mean, here we have a delivery driver. He has a gun for his own protection. He's visiting his cousin. He's lying on a sofa. And you have a dynamic entry with police coming in with flashlights in your face, and you don't know what's going on because of this disorienting effect of it. So without that video footage, which is so necessary, Bob, we need to have this on every search warrant. Video footage to exonerate or implicate police officers doing what they're supposed to or not.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa, you hit all the parameters. I mean, the search warrants they meet beforehand. They go in there purposefully with overwhelming force and semi-automatic or automatic weapons. I don't know whether they're big weapons. I can tell you, it's very ominous looking and it's meant to be disorienting. And that's for officer safety. And that's how they're trained. So here's the thing. Am I wrong to make a comparison between the decision here and the Breonna Taylor case? Was that not another dynamic entry that occurred? And in that case, they were actually fired upon the police officers. Is there a difference between how Kentucky handled this versus this particular case in Wisconsin?
Yeah, a huge difference, because they initially had authorization to do a no-knock warrant, and they actually did knock. They announced several times that 30, 45 seconds had passed with repeated knocking to alarm them, to let people know inside, police, open the door, police, police, police. So that was the difference. So people had time. It was auditory. The neighbors upstairs heard the announcement in another apartment.
I want to make clearly. So you're talking about in the case currently with Ellison's talking about they had a no knock, but they announced. Is that what you're enacting?
No, in the Breonna Taylor case,
Breonna.
They were authorized for a no knock and decided to knock. And this one was a no knock dynamic.
Yeah, I got 15 seconds. So, but is that maybe even justify the shooting, the Breonna Taylor case more, that they had a no knock, didn't do it, announced it, and that may have been one of the reasons the gun was fired? I'm just asking.
Yes, I mean, I believe everything that happened was warranted, and we did have some video footage of that, and we saw how many seconds had passed regarding the police announcement in that case.
Yeah, interesting parallel about all this, Lisa. Nobody better than you that can handle it, since you're the person that actually did it. I've only observed it. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Barisone's supposed to be back at 1:30 Eastern time, but we're going to do some recaps on the other end of the break. Stay with us.
I never thought I would experience hearing loss.
And I thought he just stopped listening to me.
The real problem was I could hardly hear what she was saying. But I found something that helped me hear every word loud and clear. It's called Power Ear, from the good people at Clean Zone.
And now he hears me and the TV and our friends in crowded places.
Plus, it's a real joy to hear my kids and grandkids the first time.
I love you, Grandpa.
And this is important to know. Power Ear is not a simple sound amplifier. It's a patented state-of-the-art digital hearing aid that I can separately adjust the high and low sounds to customize it to the way that works best for me. It's just like adjusting your radio, but for your hearing.
I love that Power Ear is FDA registered, so we trust it with our ears. And we didn't need an expensive prescription, a hearing test, or a visit to the audiologist.
We just ordered it directly from Clean Zone.
Plus, there was no convincing him to wear Power Ear. You barely know it's there.
There's no batteries to buy because it's rechargeable.
And the best part is we didn't feel taken advantage of by high-priced promises because Power Ear is so affordable.
Look, we were told we'd have to pay up to $3,000 for a hearing aid, and that's not right.
But we got our Power Ear for much, much less, just $99. Now that's something we all can afford.
And we got to try Power Ear for 90 days with a full money-back guarantee. Listen, Power Ear helps me live my best life, and it can do the same for you.
There's a phone number and a website on the screen to get your Power Ear. You'll be glad you did.
You can call or go online to get your Power Ear digital hearing aid for the factory direct price of just $99. And because it's from Clean Zone, it comes with a full 90-day money-back guarantee. There's no prescription needed. Simply call or go online to mypowerear.com to order.
Beard drip. It's a thing. This isn't a salt shaker. Not anymore, at least. Thanks to Scotch Porter's beard care products. Their quality ingredients keep my beard flake-free and my confidence on point.
Oh my goodness, this mascara, fabulous.
Boom Bright.
Boom Bright. Boom Bright. It's wonderful.
I call it the game changer. For eyelashes that have been around the world longer than 50 years.
This is an amazing mascara.
Absolutely perfect.
With Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, help is on the way.
With any of Life Alert's 3 emergency systems, help can be summoned immediately, and batteries never need charging.
I was having a stroke and I was scared to death.
If it weren't for Life Alert, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Life Alert is a lifesaver.
My husband is alive because of Life Alert.
Life Alert is the lifesaver to keep me out of assisted living.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-968-1928. That's 1-800-968-1928. Call now, 1-800-968-1928.
This chef uses made-in cookware, and so does this one, and this one.
They use made-in pans in the best restaurants in the world and at home, and so can you. Restaurant-quality cookware, crafted from the best materials in the world, with a lifetime warranty shipped directly to you. This Black Friday, save big and bring chef-quality tools to your home kitchen from madeincookware.com.
I'm Sean Sticks Larkin, and you're watching Law and Crime.
Welcome to Law and Crimes For the Record. If you're just joining us, my name is Bob Bianchi. I'll be taking it at 3 o'clock. We've got a lot on the plate, including the resumption of the trial of Michael Barisone out of Morris County, New Jersey. It's supposedly starting at 1:30 Eastern time. So we're going to do a couple of recaps. One of that is the defense is putting on a number of witnesses, including a Stephen Tarsis, who is an individual that was he's a friend and attorney who was trying to help the defendant as he was trying to remove the victims, Ms. Karanak and Wilson, and her boyfriend from the property. So let's take a listen to a little bit of that direct examination done by the defense attorney, Ed Valentis.
Did you make any arrangements for Lauren Karanak and her horses to go to another barn?
Yes, I did.
What arrangements did you make?
Understand, I never spoke to Lauren Karanak, and I had never met Corin Farrack until actually something occurred recently. But I never saw her, didn't know her. I only spoke with her father, Jonathan Karanak. And he and I had...
Well, without getting into the spoken words, right. I'm asking you what arrangements you made.
I'll tell you, yeah. He and I spoke about negotiating an arrangement whereby she would voluntarily leave the farm so that other judicial means to have her removed would not be necessary. And that's what we talked about, a negotiation of those terms so that she would leave.
Did you identify a specific farm where she could go?
Yes, I did.
Was there a specific trainer involved with that farm?
Yes, there was.
Was that trainer in some manner equal to the level of training that Michael could offer?
Yeah.
Objection.
What's the basis for the objection?
I don't think there's a foundation for that question, Judge.
Can you tell me specifically, from your own recollection, the dates when you were having these negotiations with Jonathan Karanak?
It would have been the Friday preceding this, which I guess would have been the 2nd, I suppose. Yeah. And the week, at least the week before that, and maybe even the week prior to that. It went on for some time.
So when you say the 2nd, you're referring to August 2nd,
Correct.
2019?
Yes.
And you're saying that it was occurring on that date as well as potentially the week before?
Yeah, I mean, the specific dates, of course, are days I can't remember. But I know we had several conversations, and it took quite a bit of back and forth to get to the point where I thought we were on the Friday preceding this letter.
And do you recall giving Lauren Karanak a specific date and time by which you were demanding on behalf of Michael Barisone that she vacate the premises?
Yes, I do.
And what's your recollection?
August 7th, Wednesday, August 7th.
And did you cause this letter to be delivered to Lauren Karanak? I think I asked that, but if you could just say again.
Yes, I did.
In connection with spending time with Michael in the time period from July 31st through August 6th, did you notice any changes in his affect?
Well, the change I noticed preceded those dates, but certainly very much so in those dates, yes.
Let's move it back further then. Let's take it from July 15th forward. Were you in Michael's presence in July of 2019?
Yes, I was.
Did you notice changes in his affect as it got closer to the date of the incident?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely.
What were your observations?
He became very, very upset, almost to the point of being unable to function. As an attorney, and this was my client, it got so bad I couldn't even have a conversation with him. He was in constant fear of so many things, and all he would talk about, he was in a loop. All he would do was talk about the fears that he had. And here I am trying to be a lawyer to a situation and proposing solutions or possible paths to take, and he wouldn't deal with them. It was difficult to have a conversation with him. He was constantly agitated. At times he was incoherent. It got so bad that I threatened to quit. I said, I'm not serving any purpose. You're not listening to me. You're not hearing me. I remember screaming at him. I screaming at him, not him yelling at me, because I was so upset that he was just ignoring me. I don't think I realized at the time, how out of it he was. And it only perhaps was later, as we got really close to the 6th and 7th, when he became just, non-functioning, just completely, couldn't function.
All right, Lisa Lockwood, crime analyst and former SWAT officer. Lisa, this testimony is interesting. Coming from an attorney, by the way, I feel the guy's pain. He has a client that he cannot assist because he is upset. He's not functioning properly. He couldn't communicate. He was in a loop of fear, incoherent at times. The lawyer threatened to quit. The lawyer had to scream at him, and as it got closer to the time of the actual shooting, he was getting worse. So does this help, in your mind, provide a factual basis? And by the way, that was Ed Belinkis's co-counsel on the case, not Ed Belinkis. But does that help actually the mental health experts and support their opinion, in your mind?
You bet it does. Again, we have more people coming forward. We have not only friends who are saying that he was, in this loop, having these delusions. He was depressed. He was fearful. He was paranoid. Now we have a paying attorney, an attorney who's being paid by Michael Barisone, who can't work with him and can't function and be able to do his job and what he needs to do because he's watching this decline. And it was as early as 2 weeks before the actual shooting happened. So yes, this is definitely helping the defense team, showing that we have somebody who was in this mental break, delusional break, depression, and as well as being extremely paranoid.
Yeah, Lisa, I'm also interested in your opinion about the idea that leading up to all this, Barisone is doing everything he can. I imagine the defense is going to argue in summation. That's what this is all about. Build the evidence in your trial so what you can say in summation. He's calling the police. He's reaching out to a lawyer. He's talking to numerous friends about this issue and this problem. Do you believe that assists in the juror's mind the defense argument that he was trying to do everything he could to work it out, and instead of working it out, it seemed, according to the defense, the victim was ramping up the situation? Thoughts?
Yes, and if I were on that jury panel, just flatly unbiased, no police experience, listening to the testimony that's coming forward, initially I was pro-Caneric, the victim, the person who was shot. And now as it's progressing, I'm feeling the evidence is coming forward that we have somebody who was having a terrible mental break. This had been ongoing for many years, and people who are close to him in the professional world, and then also friends, family, and neighbors are saying, yes, this is what happened. When we had any kind of confrontation with him or we tried to help him, it just wasn't working due to the myriad of mental disorders.
Yeah, I can expect in summation, we're going to also hear that the friends saw it, the psychologist talked about it, and the victim saw it as well. And instead of trying to quell the situation, they actually took advantage of that vulnerability. I'm sure that's how the defense is going to portray this at the end of the case, and that led him to push him over the edge. Anyway, let's listen to a little bit of the cross-examination with respect to an eviction letter that was being prepared to the point that we're talking about in order to abate the situation before the tragedy occurred.
So you sent a copy of the verified complaint unfiled to Ms. Canerac.
He'll stop me, I'm sure. Michael did not want to start eviction. He wanted to scare her into leaving. So we suggested serving her with the papers, but not filing them, hoping this alone would give her the impetus to honor the agreement we thought we had.
I understand. So that was going to be my follow-up question, was that Mr. Deininger showed you 705.
Yeah, there's nothing even filled out on this thing.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Right, so, okay, so this is a complaint that's not filed.
Correct.
I understand. And the purpose of sending it was for Michael Barisone to scare Lauren Canarak into thinking that he was serious or something to that effect.
Exactly.
Lisa, thoughts on that tactic to send the complaint without having it filed in order to communicate to them the seriousness of Barisone's desire to have them off the property work favorably for the defendant in front of the jury?
I think so. That was one of his lucid moments, I guess. Just give me resolution, just get her off my property, allow me to have my peace again, allow me to do the job that I was paid to do as an Olympic coach trainer, and just continue on with his life without being sunk down from all of the back and forth with the bullying and the texts and the Facebook and the spying and the lurking. Just let's get this woman off my property, and he thought his problems would be solved.
Right. So again, I want to, and then dovetailing that while that's not happening, while these vulnerabilities, quote unquote, according to the defense's theory of the case, were occurring, that they're actually ramping up the dialogue on the other end. And so they're, I'm sure, going to argue that Barisone had a psychotic snap at that point in time. He was afraid, he was scared, he has a mental health illness. And instead of calming that down, it was exacerbated. And he felt that nothing's working. My lawyer's not working. The cops aren't able to do anything, and building that idea, they felt it was between a rock and a hard place, enough to justify shooting somebody?
Well, no, I don't think so. The fact that he had the foresight to get the gun from his friend, he had the foresight of doing that. I mean, it could go both ways. He really was paranoid and thought that she was going to kill him based on Parkland shooter drawing a scenario where he thought that person was being bullied, they were going to snap, he needed to protect himself. And then the hard part again is he was the one who showed up with a weapon and created a confrontation. So, where was the break? When did it happen? There's no doubt that we have issues mentally, and it's even on the other side with Lauren Canarak. She's had issues with mental breakdowns and mental health, and also drug addictions, and all that came forward. So you have two people that just did not have the skill set to cope and do the right things that they needed to do in order to come to a good resolution in this.
Yeah. So if you were put a defense lawyer hat on right now, if you're going to try to crystallize this all in closings, and that's what lawyers always should be doing, is looking at what they want to be able to say in summation and build the building blocks through the evidence of the witnesses, where do you anticipate the strongest argument the defense has that you would present to that jury?
I would say the diagnosis in the DSMV for having this mental break, delusional break that he did have. All of the witnesses leading up to it who talked about he was at his wit's end, he was looping, he was talking about these recurring themes of, his life is going to be threatened, his world is going to be destroyed, and wasn't really able to function in a manner of, lucidness. So I think with all of that combined, and the fact that he truly thought he was at war and she was going to kill him eventually, he showed up there, and that's all we have right now. I have a hunch that he may get off.
I've been thinking myself when you were just answering that, does the defendant, in my mind, take the stand? Does the jury need to hear from him? In a certain sense, if he's really cogent, then it could go against that insanity defense. But we're talking about at the time of the incident when it happened. The defense lawyer really believes in his client. That's probably because he's talking to his client. Does the jury need to hear him? That is going to be something that will be interesting to figure out. Anyway, Lisa, thank you for that. We're going to have Adam Klasfeld with us, from the managing editor from the Law and Crime Network, to talk about the Sarah Lawrence sex cult trial, which again was a very twisted case. He's been giving us great insights. So stay tuned, because Adam will be on the other end. We'll be right back.
Letting go of my diamond ring was really hard, but selling it for the best price was simple with Worthy.com. They evaluate your jewelry to help you understand what it's actually worth. Then they auction it to their network of professional buyers. Get more for your jewelry with Worthy.com.
It wasn't Meta's fault that yo-yo dieting failed her. Calibrate works with her biology to end an unsustainable cycle. Medication, coaching, lifestyle tweaks. Lose at least 10% of your body weight or your money back. Join Calibrate.com.
What are my stats? Well, my investments are tracking up, my house will be paid off in 12 years, and I'll retire at 61. Take control of your finances with Quicken. Try risk-free for 30 days.
Perfect 10. I wanna get in. Can I get down so I can win? I like the way you work it. No diggity. I got to bag it up. Bag it up. I like the way you work it. No diggity. I got to bag it.
I've been having stomach troubles. It's either yogurt, pork, or citrus. Or almonds. Or maybe it's cinnamon. Now, I could start by removing a lot of things from my diet and adding them back in one at a time until I find the culprit. Or I could find out what might actually be bothering me before removing and adding foods back in again. I'm gonna do that.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Retailers, shopping channels, and now even banks have tried canceling myself and MyPillow. Well, during these times, your support has meant everything to us. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you by passing the savings directly on to you. For a limited time, you can get my brand new product, My Slippers, for 50% off. That's the lowest price ever. And remember, My Slippers come with an exclusive 4-layer design. These layers combine to give you amazing comfort and support and help reduce stress on your feet. And with the durable indoor-outdoor sole, you can wear My Slippers anytime, anywhere. I personally guarantee these will be the most comfortable slippers you'll ever own. So go to MyPillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to get My Slippers for 50% off, the lowest price in history. And if you do it right now, I'm going to include a free gift with your purchase. Thank you and God bless.
Ah, the sweet, sweet sound of shoes. Never gets old. More music to your ears. As a Just Fab VIP, you get stylish, on-trend shoes and head-to-toe fashion at up to 30% off retail prices. Plus, if you sign up today, you get your first pair for just $10. Now that's something to sing about. Sign up now at justfab.com.
I'm Terry Austin, and you're watching Law and Crime.
All right, welcome back. The Sarah Lawrence sex cult trial of Larry Ray is concluded. It's in the books. The jury came back guilty on all counts. It was in federal court, but as you've heard me say, if you follow the show, while we can't have cameras in federal court, we have Adam Klasfeld with us, managing editor. Better than a camera, I always say. He is our boots on the ground. There's done a great job, Adam, covering this case. I love the detail that you've been providing to us. So what was it like? Tell us about the whole atmosphere. You know, obviously a big case, very twisted. You've done a great job at unpacking a lot of the crazy in this case. So give us the feel, Adam.
So it was a very quick verdict, as you saw. Deliberations started at 9:30 in the morning, and by a little after 1, we received a notification that there's a verdict, and the verdict was what it was. Guilty on all 15 counts of sex trafficking, racketeering, forced labor, extortion, money laundering, and other crimes. The prosecution said during summations that he acted like a crime boss in victimizing these Sarah Lawrence students whose lives he entered in 2010. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams for the Southern District of New York said Larry Ray is an evil man and described how he entered into these children's lives and how he exploited them, tortured them. One of his victims, Claudia Drury, was 19 years old when they met, and some years later, she testified that he coerced her into a life of sex work to pay back debts of $2.5 million at the end of it, $2.5 million to Larry Ray, as many as tens of thousands of dollars a week. She worked 7 days a week, she said. Doesn't matter whether it was holidays or her birthday. A very grueling testimony. She was on the stand for 5 days of harrowing testimony describing at one point what prosecutors called her long night of torture. In the courtroom when it went down were the Rosario siblings, Felicia Rosario, Santos Rosario, and Yalitza Rosario. Even their mother, Maritza Rosario, testified about not seeing her children for years, and Santos Rosario desperate to borrow money to give to Ray, who had somehow persuaded all of these students that they were in his debt because he would extract confessions that the jury saw. Part of the reason we had such a quick verdict in this case was that he had recorded so many of these forced confessions. And we've shown the videos on the Law and Crime Network this entire time showing these kids confessing purportedly to poisoning him, to damaging his property, and all the time he's racking up debts and collecting in sometimes brutal ways. We saw the video, of course, of Dan Levin having his tongue pulled with a set of pliers by Ray, who then in the same video puts a hammer under his chin and next to his neck, threatens to do worse. That is just some of the harrowing testimony of what he subjected this group of kids to. And now the verdict is in. The jury believed their own eyes. They believed what they saw in the videos. They believed what they heard in the audio tapes, and they followed the money trail as this money came from these students' various bank accounts into Larry Ray's GoDaddy.com account to, the jury has now found, launder the ill-gotten gains inside a domain name business. So a very sordid case, 15 counts, a very complicated case, but it didn't take the jury too long to bring it to its conclusion.
Yeah, like you said, there were compelling pieces of evidence with regard to those videos that I felt just the jury seeing it, having been being a trial lawyer, is just going to have such a visceral reaction to him. So to those videos. So obviously, the advice of counsel defense that was presented was summarily dismissed by this jury in quick order. Let's talk about a little bit about sentencing. This is a 62-year-old guy. You have to be pragmatic here. I mean, the sentencing code and the testimony that came out, the probation department will do a report. They'll go through all the sentencing guidelines. They're going to also do other aggravating factors in the case, or relevant conduct, as they call it, that could be included to increase even those guideline ranges. Personally, I don't know. What are you hearing around the courthouse? Because I think that he's going to be in jail for the rest of his natural life. You?
Well, that's the ceiling on even one of his 15 counts of conviction. And remember, this isn't Larry Ray's first rodeo. It's not his first time in the federal courthouse as a federal convict. He, in the late 1990s, was part of what was ultimately adjudged to be a pump and dump scheme, prosecuted in the Eastern District of New York. He turned government informant in that case. And so he does have that record. So that can be and will be an aggravating factor, plus just the aggravating factor of the assaults that are captured on the videotapes, that perhaps in Larry Ray's mind, these videotapes were records of confessions that would somehow exonerate him. But that's not how the jury viewed it. That's not how prosecutors are going to view it. And certainly one can easily see the judge finding that aggravating. And with 15 counts against him, just one of them having a maximum of life, 62-year-old Larry Ray looks to be facing some serious jail time.
Yeah, we talked about some of the impact that these videos from the victims will have on the judge's sentencing. One of them, Felicia Rosario, as you had mentioned, the former girlfriend of Larry Ray. Let's just let our audience see just a snippet of what the court saw, and that you can certainly guarantee, I think, is going to lead to upward departures on the sentencing guideline. Let's take a look.
Please stop, Felicia. Please stop. Please stop trying to attack me. Please stop.
I got it on video. I'm watching. Why are we doing that now?
So I'm going back to bed. Goodbye, guys.
Why are we doing
Good
that?
night.
Why are we doing that?
I hear a pill bottle opening and closing.
Spit them out. Spit them?
It's too late. I took Adderall.
How many?
Just a half pill.
Why did you take my medication? Come on.
Because I wanted to take.
That's enough.
Okay.
Adam, that and so many other videos that we saw that he actually created his own evidence against them, which, you can't make it up. It happens so often, but just really tormenting these women and these people, these victims. So what do we expect from the Rosarios? Do you think that they're going to be speaking at sentencing based on what you've seen in court? I mean, have they been emboldened and empowered now and are going to have their voice, their day in court?
Well, they haven't confirmed yet that they're speaking at sentencing, but to put in perspective, they were in the courtroom at his verdict. The prosecution did lead them out of the courtroom after the verdict came down, and they certainly seem very involved in the process. All three of the siblings testified at trial. Their mother testified at trial. Felicia Rosario, who we saw in that video, along with her sister Yalitza, were they both attempted suicide when they were in Larry Ray's poll. So did Santos Rosario. It's a harrowing story. She was a very promising young student. She was a doctor, aspiring doctor, who had been Harvard trained. She wasn't a Sarah Lawrence student. She was also Columbia trained, where she got her medical degree. From Larry Ray's spell, she became his girlfriend. She became what Ray called his wife, what she called him her husband. They were never married, but under his spell, he essentially goaded her to have sex with strange men and tape it. And an FBI witness authenticated the videos. This was a very lurid case. This was a case where you saw in the video earlier, they were talking about taking pills. Two of the siblings tried to overdose on Tylenol. There had been some comments from his victims that one of the things that Larry Ray would do is convince all of his victims that they were suicidal, convince them all that they had mental illness, they had BPD, bipolar disorder. And there were a number of suicide attempts, not only within the Rosario family, but outside, because of the mind control, the coercive control that Larry Ray has now been found through the extortion charge and other counts to have done to his victims.
Adam, in that clip, we saw somebody else was filming it. Can you enlighten us as to who that individual is? And do we expect that there are going to be any more charges brought in connection with this case?
Well, in that particular clip, I believe that the person filming was Yalitza, who is her sister. She's another victim. As we see in a lot of cult cases, the line between the people who are participating and, when they are under coercive control, they cannot be blamed in many senses. So she is a victim of the Larry Ray family, as the prosecutors call it. There are still pending charges against Isabella Pollock. Isabella Pollock has been described by prosecutors as Ray's lieutenant, and she is going to stand trial, or is scheduled to stand trial later this year. During summations, prosecutors had some very harsh words for Larry Ray's daughter, Talia Ray, who has not been charged, has not been accused of wrongdoing, but was said to have helped, and by the prosecutor openly, of obstructing justice and of tormenting Larry Ray's victims. Again, she has not been charged with a crime. She has not been accused of wrongdoing. But given the prosecutor's summations, they really laid into her. As a matter of fact, his own defense attorney had to mitigate it and called her a mean girl.
Wow. Adam Klasfeld from the Law and Crime Network, managing editor. It's good to see you in person. You did a great job, my man. Thank you so much for helping us out, Adam.
Thank you for having me again.
Okay, we'll talk soon. All right, up next, as we wait for Barisone, which should be starting any minute now, we'll do a little recap to the extent we can with William Husel, the former doctor charged with killing 14 people. Was it comfort care or was it murder? We'll talk about that on the other end. Stay with us.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. Not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount, and that's how easy it is. And I did this to my father. We were at home, 4 minutes, 34 seconds, completely gone.
My real true opinion is holy words I can't say on camera. This is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I could feel it just lifting my skin. It was amazing. It feels good. Feels great. Looks even better.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work for yourself after your first application. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
What does the future of strength look like? It's dynamic weight that adjusts for you in real time for a more efficient workout. And you can only experience it on Tonal.
Learn more at tonal.com.
This is Marianne's first time visiting Paris.
Madame, où allez-vous?
Before Marianne packed her bags, before she attempted her first sentence in French, before she completed her first 15-minute lesson,
Yes.
she downloaded Babbel. Babbel helped unlock her lifelong dream of learning French. She started speaking in just 3 weeks. So when it came time to tell the cab driver to take her to the Hotel Pierre,
J'aimerais aller à l'Hôtel Pierre.
Oh, c'est très bien. J'espère que votre voyage s'est bien passé.
150 language experts and educators designed Babbel to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language. Babbel focuses on natural conversation. You'll remember what you learn, and you can speak and pronounce with confidence. Start speaking a new language in 3 weeks. Try it for free at babbel.com.
I love Made In. I love what Made In represents. With the product, you could tell that there's extreme craftsmanship.
You would think a pan is a pan until Made In came along, and I went, wow, these things are something better.
I use Made In both at home and here at Craft in New York City. They're beautifully made and will help you take your cooking to the next level.
Those are the pans that we use at Alinea. We're going to have the best pans in the world at one of the best restaurants in the world.
I broke up the largest cockfighting ring in New York City looking for stolen Vespas.
I'm kind of scared that you're in here.
I just said, F it, man. I jumped off the car, pulled the maps down, and ran up in there.
And they're hitman chat groups, which is absolutely insane.
Tried to flush it down the toilet, and then the toilet backed up.
Picked up 400 kilos from 2 Cuban pilots that flew it in from Cuba.
Cheers to you, first of all, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being on here.
No one can deliver your mom's homemade short ribs. For starters, your mom doesn't have a restaurant. If she did, it would be impossible to get in. She'd become famous overnight. She'd get talked into franchising everything, and at that point, it wouldn't really taste like your mom's short ribs. No one can deliver your mom's homemade short ribs. That's why Instacart helps deliver the ingredients. Visit instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first order.
Beer drip. It's a thing. This isn't a salt shaker. Not anymore, at least. Thanks to Scotch Porter's beard care products. Their quality ingredients keep my beard flake-free and my confidence on point.
I'm Sean Sticks Larkin, and you're watching Law and Crime.
Welcome back to For the Record. So William Husel will be getting closing statements on Monday. Interesting case where he's initially charged with 25 murders. The government dropped 11 of those counts, leaving 14 murders. Question is very simple. In this case, Was this compassionate care that was appropriate, or was this murder, according to the prosecutors? They indicate that it was. Very interesting, because many of the state's witnesses that testified actually supported their respect for Dr. Husel, which was really interesting. And of course, we know that the big issue in this case is that they were, the state is arguing, killed by the use of fentanyl, but there is no prescribing regimen with respect to that. So it becomes a very controversial thing. Many people, many doctors, especially around the country, are going to be looking at this, because doctors could now be worried that their prescription for end-of-life care could be used against them in a court of law and put them in jail, because Dr. Husel is facing a lifetime sentence on each of these counts. So it's a good time right now to go back to the opening statements to see whether or not we believe the prosecution in this particular instance actually produced the evidence as they stated they would in their opening. So let's listen to the prosecutor's opening.
Nighttime ICU at Mount Carmel West did not have a dedicated pharmacist. 2 pharmacists served the entire hospital during the night shift. If a physician ordered opiates or benzodiazepines on override from the Pyxis machine and the drug was administered, there was never pharmacy review for appropriate use. In the case of defendant's dosing regimens, his practice of overprescribing fentanyl and other drugs continued without oversight for years. You will hear how well-respected defendant was at Mount Carmel West. The nurses, pharmacists, and other doctors liked him and thought he was a good doctor. He was attentive to the patients and willing to share knowledge. Doctor of the Year honors were bestowed on the defendant during one of his first few years at the hospital. He was well known for his training at the Cleveland Clinic in anesthesiology and critical care. He was and is, in many cases, still highly regarded by many of the young nurses who worked on the ICU at night. Many new nursing school graduates, ambitious, bright, and in the defendant's thrall. They looked up to him, trusted him, and had extreme difficulty in questioning his orders or methods. His ability to verbally provide alleged reasons for his dosing, coupled with his training as an anesthesiologist, caused the nurses and pharmacists to accept his practices as appropriate and even essential. Members of the jury, this case is a mountain of evidence, information, technical data, and criminality against 14 innocent and seriously ill individuals. Our evidence will show that this case is not about the following. It is not about fentanyl as a drug of abuse. It is not about drug diversion from a pharmacy. It is not about Medicaid fraud. It is not about a hospital system desperate to survive. It is not about taking comfort care from the dying or wanting people to die in pain. It is not about assisted suicide. It is not about criminal behavior of anyone other than the accused, William Husel. It is not about civil judgment for or against anyone involved in this case. It is not about wrongdoing by Mount Carmel as an institution or its employees, including administration, nurses, and pharmacists. This case will touch upon the following concepts: medical malpractice or negligence, group dynamics in the medical profession, financial pressures in the U.S. medical system, system failures in large institutions, the culture in the ICU at Mount Carmel West, the assumption in a medical setting of good intentions, the Catholic Church principles of sanctity of life and care for the sick, needy, and/or elderly. Our evidence will also show that after an extubation, the standard of care involves maintaining a caring presence at the patient's bedside, monitoring pain and ongoing titration or adjustment of the medications to keep the person in a state of comfort, allowing them to pass naturally. This is in direct contrast with the defendant's practice of administering an enormous shot in a short period of time and calling it a day. Our evidence will also show that Mount Carmel Hospital system ran an internal audit, and the defendant was the only physician in the entire hospital system using fentanyl and benzodiazepines in these grossly inflated doses for this purpose. Ultimately, our case is about the fact that William Husel caused the death of our 14 victims.
All right, Lisa Lockwood, did the prosecutor deliver?
I think that her opening was amazing for the defense initially when she said how great he was. And you were going to be hearing from so many people who worked with him regarding his style, his mannerism, his professionalism, his education. So all of it sounded like the defense opening statement. But in turn, she went on to say it wasn't, as far as blaming the hospital and blaming anybody outside of Dr. Husel and trying to pinpoint put everything on Dr. Husel's shoulders, that it was only him and him alone who made these decisions, was obviously helpful. I don't think she proved it.
Yeah, prosecutor had to do that in opening because she knew those witnesses were going to go on that stand and talk about how much they respected him. Certainly something as a prosecutor I wouldn't want to be saying in my opening statement. Nevertheless, we move on because Barisone is live in court. We have the continued cross-examination by Christopher Shellhorn of Dr. Charles Hasten. Let's go live.
That's dispositive of any legal standard?
I don't know about that. I doubt it. Because psychiatric diagnoses and legal standard are two separate domains, so they may not overlap.
So meaning that if you find or diagnose someone with a specific diagnosis, that doesn't automatically mean they meet a legal standard?
Well, first of all, I spelled out in my report in a lot of detail that when you're doing a report, you have to determine the purported forensic report, the purported intent of the action. Then what you have to do is to link the purported intent with the diagnosis, those two. Then the third step is to take those two factors, the diagnosis, the purported intent, and then relate it to either diminished capacity or a criminal responsibility. So if you skip the steps rather than getting, do step one or step two, you have to do all three. So it's, to answer you directly, unless you spell it out, there's no set standard for a relationship between diagnosis and the legal standard.
Meaning that just because you diagnose someone with delusional disorder, it doesn't automatically mean they meet a legal standard?
I think on page 25 of your book, they point out the fact that these are the steps you have to do. You have to relate the diagnosis to some kind of functional deficit, relate the functional deficit to the diagnosis.
So I think you're saying that you agree with me.
I don't know what I'm sorry to say it this way, but I'm not sure I fully understand what you're thinking.
If you and maybe just try answering my question.
Diagnosis does not necessarily mean that it meets a particular standard. You have to demonstrate, according to DSM-5, the steps along the way, how you went from the purported intent, the diagnosis, those two factors, and then related to the legal statute.
So if someone is diagnosed with delusional disorder, it doesn't automatically mean that they meet a legal standard?
Correct. You have to demonstrate the connection. That's stated clearly in the DSM-5.
Now, you were aware of Dr. Simmering's diagnoses before you rendered your opinion?
Yes.
And you agreed with him that this defendant suffers from delusional disorder, persecutory type?
Yes.
You would agree that a person with delusions is capable of knowing right versus wrong?
It depends on the situation, because paranoid delusions is a dimension. And I said the other day, it goes from normal population into very disturbed people. So it depends on what part of that normal curve you're talking about.
You'd agree with me that a person with delusions could understand the nature and quality of their actions?
You totally have to spell that out a lot more. It depends on the circumstance. There's not like a black or white type of delusional disorder. There's dimensionality here.
Doctor, how do you define a delusion?
I mentioned the other day, it's a belief based on incorrect thinking. There's an experience, then there's a belief based on incorrect thinking that comes to a conclusion that the person is not going to change no matter what kind of argument you give. So it's a thought that was produced incorrectly. I gave examples when I interviewed Mr. Barisone of the odd thinking that he had. And I thought it was an unusual, finding, but then I see that some other people completely independent of me, but on a much higher level, have observed the same thing with regards to delusions, that it's a cognitive processing difficulty. Someone from University of Hawaii has written extensively on that, but I didn't know that before I observed those behaviors in him.
So would you agree with me that a delusion is a false belief?
It's a false belief, yes.
What is Michael Barisone's specific delusion?
Well, I touched on it yesterday, and instead of fireworks, he believes that if he or Mary Haskins was incarcerated for some purported some purported DIFUS violation, that the children were going to be hunted down and killed. He felt that very strongly. I don't believe that, but,
So his specific delusion was
it's not,
related...
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. So his specific delusion, in your opinion...
Well, fascinating information from the doctor. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other end with more of his testimony. Please stay with us.
Funerals can be emotionally devastating for a family to go through. Besides the sorrow, loved ones are left with the high costs of arranging a funeral. Funeral Advantage was formed to help protect your family when they need it most. It pays your loved ones up to $20,000 immediately for funeral and any other expenses.
It's a good feeling to know that my family will be taken care of if anything happens to me.
Funerals can easily cost $9,000 or more, but government benefits pay only $255, leaving your loved ones to pay the rest.
It's so easy. Just answer a few simple health questions. This is so affordable, even for someone like me who's on a fixed income.
If you're 40 to 85, get information on how to protect your family. Funeral Advantage is something we all need. There's no risk or obligation. Call now.
Get the facts about how easy it is to protect your family. Call 800-852-0564. That's 800-852-0564.
Letting go of my diamond ring was really hard, but selling it for the best price was simple with Worthy.com. They evaluate your jewelry to help you understand what it's actually worth. Then they auction it to their network of professional buyers. Get more for your jewelry with Worthy.com.
Calibrate is a doctor-guided weight loss program that combines virtual doctor visits, FDA-approved medication, and one-on-one video coaching to reset your metabolic system. Get back in control of your weight and your health with Calibrate. Sign up today at joincalibrate.com.
What are my stats? Well, my investments are tracking up, my house will be paid off in 12 years, and I'll retire at 61. Take control of your finances with Quicken. Try risk-free for 30 days.
So I have peppers, tomatoes, parsley. What's that one? That's my credit. It gets lots of sun, water, and I even sing to it every day. but it never grows.
You need Credit Sesame. With Credit Sesame, you get your free score right away and see steps you can take to improve it. Daily score refreshes to help track your progress, and they'll even pay you for growing your score.
Credit Sesame? Wow. Maybe I could start growing my savings there.
Get your free credit score today. You can get anything instantly with an app, even toilet paper. But what about someone to fix your toilet? Thumbtack's the app that finds you people fast. See prices, reviews, and chat with local pros right in the app. Download Thumbtack today.
My wedding planner got me these fries. She's amazing, and I found her on Thumbtack. Same place I found all my wedding vendors. I checked profiles, reviews, and prices, asked a million questions, and did it all in the app. I found vendors who really got me. Download Thumbtack today.
Keeps has given me the control of my hair back.
Seeing the progress was awesome. Seeing my hair grow back so quick.
I feel great. I feel confident. I feel very happy about my journey so far with Keeps and where it's going in the future.
Get started at keeps.com/TV.
I'm Brian Ross, and you're watching Law and Crime.
All right, we had the continued cross-examination of the defense expert. During our break, the expert was talking about how DCP&P was called, that he was afraid that his children were going to be hunted and that his life was threatened. That's the delusion. Prosecutor now asking him, when did that delusion begin? Let's go back 5.
Criteria for delusional disorder is that the delusion existed for at least 1 month.
Yes, I understand that.
Now, you found that the defendant suffers from a subtype of delusional disorder, persecutory type?
Yes.
What are the symptoms or characteristics of persecutory type delusional disorder?
Well, as it says, he feels as if there's a danger out there. He feels threatened personally. He feels that all the things he's doing are being monitored, and he feels as if that someone can plan to kill him.
And I'm not talking about Michael Barisone in particular. I'm talking in general.
In
what
general,
are the characteristics of the subtype of persecutory delusional
In general, the person believes that there's some threat in the outside environment to him. And if it was analyzed by other people, people would not come up with that conclusion.
So it's a false belief that the person is in danger that other people don't agree with.
Correct. The last part I didn't follow, that other people don't agree with?
Wasn't the last part of your last answer that if other people didn't see it,
well,
or other people would try to talk the person out of it?
Yes.
So you'd agree with me that persecutory type delusional disorder could be characterized by a person having a false belief that there was a danger to themselves that other people didn't agree with?
Yes. And that's broadly speaking about it.
Now, you indicated earlier that you received a version of events from Michael Barisone.
Yes.
And was that both in combination with your interviews with him as well as reviewing the written statements that he gave to Dr. Simring?
Yes.
You'd agree with me that by the time you met with him, he had received discovery in this case?
Yes.
And you'd agree with me that by the time he wrote those statements for Dr. Simring, he had received discovery in this case?
How does he know?
Yeah, I'm not sure this witness would know that.
Well, he could say that he doesn't know that.
Do you know that, Doctor?
No.
No, of course not.
Did you ask him that?
Did I ask him when he received the discovery?
Did you ask him, or were you aware if he had access to discovery when he wrote the written statement?
No, I don't know about that.
Now, you wrote in your report that among the defendant's fears were that he told police that Lauren Canarak had weapons.
Yes.
Did you listen to any of the 911 calls in this case?
Yes.
And you're aware that on July 31st, he was asked if weapons were involved or mentioned, and his response was no.
Correct.
Objection, Judge.
You see that sidebar?
How much time? All right, Lisa, another sidebar. So what do you think? I've taught a lot of prosecutors about cross-examination and defense lawyers for that matter. Gotta be careful with an expert that you don't get in a cage with the bear. They have a lot more knowledge than you do. Would have to get to the points you need to get to. Use your practical common sense arguments and just move on. Is the prosecutor scoring points on this cross in your mind, or do you think that maybe he should just get out of this?
Well, you would know that better than me, but the corroboration, trying to find out if there was corroboration, he had information prior to his result in what he had with his diagnosis of Barisone. So if he had all that information from the other doctor prior to, will his investigation be skewed based on that? And it wouldn't be free and independent. And this last sidebar, getting in there that when he called 911, Michael Barisone, and didn't believe that the defendant had weapons, that the victim had weapons, that was a good get right now.
Okay. Well, we'll see where we go from here, Lisa, because I know that the prosecutor is going to have some more questioning, and obviously it's going to be important as to their determination as to whether or not they're going to actually put a rebuttal case on and call psychiatric testimony to rebut, or whether they feel that the cross-examination that they're getting out right now is sufficient, that they don't need to call that witness. Lisa, I know you got to go. We appreciate you being on. Always great to have you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Thick growing. That's what I wanted from my beard. And Scotch Porter's quality beard care products gave me just that. No struggle, easy to use, real results, I can see. Your turn.
These 3 little sticks are game changers. It is what I call magic in a stick. Boomstick Trio.
Glow, glimmer, and color.
Boom Glow. It feels so good on your skin.
Boomstick color, blush, your lipstick, and any other color you want. Stuff is super creamy.
The Boomstick Glimmer, it just feels special.
It is a nice shimmer.
I look like me, but I've got a glow.
Something's bothering my stomach. I could cut out a lot of foods or figure out what's actually bothering me before removing and adding back. I'll do that.
Stay tuned to get this free 5-piece ultra nonstick bakeware set from Gotham Steel. Are you tired of pans that burn and lids that don't fit? Worse yet, they're a nightmare to clean. You need a new set, but prices are so high it's obscene. Well, now there's a brand new professional cookware set that's ultra durable and non-stick. These pans are super slick, and they can be yours for our lowest price ever. Introducing Gotham Steel, chef-tested cookware designed to make family meals with no sticking and easy cleanup every time. Gotham Steel is made with cast aluminum and coated with Ticerama, a fusion of ultra-durable titanium and super slick ceramic. This cookware comes with vented glass lids and is oven rated up to 500 degrees, so bake meals in the oven that come out perfect every time. Even use metal utensils with no scratching. Plus, the entire set is PFOA free and dishwasher safe. Other professional cookware sets can cost up to $400, but we have a factory direct deal for you. You can get the Gotham Steel 12-piece set not for $400 or even $300, but for just 5 easy payments of $49.99. But wait, order right now and we'll drop 1 payment. That's just 4 easy payments of $49.99. This is nonstick cookware that we know you'll love. That's why we're guaranteeing it for a full 10 years. We'll even include our self-draining fry basket, stainless steel steamer insert, and steamer rack, a $50 value absolutely free. And there's even more. As a special gift, you'll get our 5-piece Gotham Steel bakeware set. The fast, easy, ultra nonstick way to bake your favorite desserts. No grease or oil needed. Together, they're a $110 value. Yours free. That's an incredible 20-piece cookware set. Plus free shipping on your entire order. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-916-3145 or go to gothamset.com. Again, that's 1-800-916-3145 or order online at gothamset.com.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity and how to get out of one you're unhappy with. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers is from a leading financial firm. It contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free!
Call 800-830-0217.
As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,200 annuities and summarized rates and benefits of annuities from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and a free annuity rate report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited.
Call 800-830-0217. That's 800-830-0217.
Call now.
I'm Dan Abrams, and you're watching Law and Crime.
Welcome back to For the Record. If you're just joining us, my name is Bob Bianchi. I'll be taking it at 3 o'clock. We're covering Michael Barisone is live in court. The prosecutor, Christopher Shellhorn, cross-examining the defense medical expert. During the break, for those of you who've been with us, a lot was gone into about 911 calls where the defendant is indicating that this is war, I need them gone. And prosecutor asking rhetorically, in all those other calls, he never shot anyone, did he? Let's go back live to court.
You don't think him obtaining the gun that he's accused of using to shoot two people several days later, that when he obtained that, you don't think that that matters?
I don't think it's, for at least for me, I don't feel it's pertinent to my conclusion in the case. When he received the gun, when he put it in the safe.
I have no further questions, Judge.
All right. Redirect.
Doctor, yesterday the prosecutor was showing you numerous articles and different books with regards to psychiatry. You recall those?
Yes, I do.
Is there an equal number of articles and books that say the exact opposite thing that he showed you?
Without a doubt, 200%. As a matter of fact, after I left yesterday, I read the book that Mr. Shellhorn referenced.
And so the record is clear. You had never been shown that book or given advance notice that he was going to show that to you, correct?
Without a doubt. I didn't know about that book. I didn't know about that reference.
Now, did you read that book?
Last night I did. I got it through Kindle, and it explains the mystery.
And what, if anything, would you like to say with regards to that in reference to the specific things that he showed you?
Well, in Chapter 3, there was, that's the chapter he showed me.
Judge, not to interrupt, but could we just, so the record is clear, I showed Dr. Hassan a number of things yesterday, but just so the record's clear, he can indicate what he's reading from, which book he's referring to.
This is the book by John, I want to say Batchelor, it's not. I forgot his Butcher. Yes, James Butcher. John Batchelor is a radio personality, or was. The particular item that Mr. Shellhorn showed me was a paragraph describing paranoid features if someone had a high score on scale 6. And I noticed when I looked at it, there was no numbers in there. It just...
When you mean no numbers, what do you...
No scores. There was no scores. I was taken aback, and it was so short.
What's the significance of scores?
Well, there's low, medium, and high. They're completely different. There was none of that in there. So I got the book via Kindle last night, and I read that section. Yeah, I understand why. Because the author of the book said, I suggest you look up articles by other experts to get more in-depth information. This is what he wrote. Chapter 3 provides a brief...
Can I just ask what page we're reading from, Judge? I have the book here so I can follow along.
Well, I have it from location 897 in the book, so I can't tell you. It's somewhere in Chapter 3, in the area where you showed me that there were no T-scores. You had me look at that with you.
Continue, Doctor.
Chapter 3 provides a brief overview of each of the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory -2, in parentheses MMPI-2, clinical, content, and supplementary scales in turn. More in-depth information on each of these scales is available in any of the standard MMPI-2 reference books, such as Butcher and Williams, Friedman, Bolinsky, Lewin, Nichols, Graham, and Green. So over here, yes, this is a typical reference book by David Nichols, who was quite nice to me one time when I called him up. Now, if you look in this book, here, it gives specific information on scale 6, and I referenced it in my report. If you're very high on scale 6, paranoia, and you're low on schizophrenia, it suggests that the person has a encrusted delusional disorder targeted to one particular person. And a high score on scale 6 is indicative or suggestive of a delusional disorder. I gave other references there, but that's what I found yesterday.
Now, with regards to his questions concerning feigning, is it correct if I can simplify the term as someone telling the truth?
Not telling, if you're feigning, you're not telling the truth.
Right, that's what I mean, whether or not someone is telling the truth, correct?
Correct.
Now, with regards to Michael's repeated statements to the first aid people, to the EMS personnel, Morristown Medical, Morristown Hospital, and the Morris County Correctional Facility, where he said he didn't remember. Did you take into account those specific medical reports and references with regards to your determination as to whether or not Michael Barisone was feigning?
Well, feigning is determined by testing. It's not determined by just your subtle opinion. If I found no evidence of feigning, either personality or cognitive or neuropsychological with them, with the exception of the Tom that's questionable results there anyway. So to answer you directly, I found no evidence of feigning. There was repeated references that he couldn't remember the event.
And in addition to your testing, do those references close in time to the incident confirm whether or not that testing is accurate?
I don't know about that. I mean, to me, consistently he reported he couldn't remember, he was dazed. There were statements that he had partial consciousness, and that's consistent with the possibility of a mild TBI or some type of extreme anxiety that obliterated that memory.
Now, with regards to his statement testified to where he allegedly said, "I'm sorry," in the hospital, were you aware that prior to that he was injected with 100 milligrams of fentanyl?
Yes.
And what, if anything, would that drug fentanyl have to do with?
Objection.
I don't know that he's qualified to say that. He's not a medical doctor.
Are you familiar with the effects of fentanyl, Doctor?
Well,
Same objection, Your Honor.
If you're going to pursue this, I need to have a 104 hearing outside the presence of the jury.
I'll move on, Judge.
All right. Questions withdrawn.
Yesterday, the prosecutor was asking you questions as to whether or not someone's mistaken belief would affect your delusional diagnosis. Did you review the Safe Sport complaint that Lauren Canarak made against Michael Barisone?
Yes.
Were there allegations of
Judge,
sexual
I'm going to object.
misconduct?
Hold on, there's an objection, Mr. Belinkis.
I didn't finish the question.
I know, and there's an objection. It doesn't mean you keep talking when there's an objection. Say the same thing to witnesses.
Oh my gosh, we got Florina Altshiler with us, a criminal defense lawyer. Man, oh man, Florina, I got to start with that last thing. I mean, the guy didn't even finish the question, so they're at sidebar again. Let's blow past this. So how do you think that the defense expert is holding up under cross-examination?
Look, he's doing what every expert does. He's doing his homework, albeit a little late, right? He was questioned about literature that he wasn't familiar with, that he had to dig up last minute last night and read to refamiliarize himself with a topic that he's an expert in. But it sounds like he was able to find some information within that chapter to actually clarify his answer and rehabilitate his earlier opinion, despite a cross that suggested otherwise.
Yeah, but when you cross-examine the expert witnesses, the number one rule is, like I said before, you don't get in the cage with the bear unless the door is locked and you get a 10-foot pole, because they could tear you up if you get inside that cage. The fact of the matter is, what this expert said, whether or not the jury believes it or not, is it's just a reference guide that references the real stuff that these doctors review. And that could be used by the defense lawyer at the end of the day, saying, they're giving you this kind of low-level thing where in the book itself, it says go to other places, and that's where I got my opinion from. What are your thoughts about that?
Sure. I mean, I'm surprised he even said that was authoritative in the first place, right? If he didn't validate that article and that book, they wouldn't be able to question him about it at all. But because he gave credence to it, they were able to go into it yesterday. Then he had to go read up on it to familiarize with himself with what they're actually referencing within the references to now rehabilitate himself today. And I think the redirect is going pretty well, where he is addressing the finer nuances of that opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Florina, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll come back, hopefully, on the other end without another sidebar. We'll be right back.
Letting go of my diamond ring was really hard, but selling it for the best price was simple with Worthy.com. They evaluate your jewelry to help you understand what it's actually worth. Then they auction it to their network of professional buyers. Get more for your jewelry with Worthy.com.
Calibrate is a doctor-guided weight loss program that combines virtual doctor visits, FDA-approved medication, and one-on-one video coaching to reset your metabolic system. Get back in control of your weight and your health with Calibrate. Sign up today at joincalibrate.com.
What are my stats? Well, my investments are tracking up, my house will be paid off in 12 years, and I'll retire at 61. Take control of your finances with Quicken. Try risk-free for 30 days.
I've always been prone to hair thinning.
I was under a lot of stress. I was getting older.
I started taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement.
I am back to me.
Start your hair growth journey at Nutrafol.com.
George, why are we here today? Are you making a comeback?
I'm announcing I beat expensive home repairs, and you can too with Choice Home Warranty.
What's a home warranty?
It's a service contract that can protect over 25 major home systems and appliances from expensive breakdown caused by normal wear and tear. So when covered items break down, Choice Home Warranty can help repair or replace them, saving you lots of money.
Isn't that what homeowners insurance does?
No, sir. Homeowners insurance doesn't cover things like AC, heating, plumbing, or your kitchen and laundry appliances when they break down, which means you could get stuck with the repair bill.
Don't get stuck with expensive repair bills. Get protection for covered unexpected home appliance or system breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. Call today for a free quote.
I've had experiences with home warranties in the past, and they don't respond like Choice does.
Choice Home Warranty has saved me so much money. You name it, they can repair it.
They're named the best home warranty company and best claim service by U.S. News 360 Reviews. They've handled over 4 million claims, and they've got my seal of approval, too.
Is Choice Home Warranty expensive?
Not at all. It's less than a cup of coffee a day. You make a claim 24/7, and one of their 15,000 qualified technicians can be on their way.
It's not if your appliance is going to break down, it's only when. You need the security of a home warranty, and for me, it's Choice Home Warranty.
Call Choice Home Warranty now. The call is free, your quote is free, and when you tell them that I sent you, your first month is free.
Beat expensive home repairs like George Foreman by calling Choice Home Warranty before your appliances break down. Call for a free quote today. Call 800-361-6072. That's 800-361-6072. 800-361-6072.
I'm Brian Ross, and you're watching Law and Crime.
Okay, Michael Barisone, when we left, they were at sidebar. They came back. The defense attorney tried to ask another question, was prohibited from doing that. Finished his questions. That witness indicated to the court that he is resting his case. The defendant is not being called to the stand, subject to the admission of certain exhibits for evidence. The judge then asked the prosecutor if he has a rebuttal case, and he said yes. And this is a Dr. Luz Selinger, I believe the name is. I assume that this is going to be a mental health expert. Let's go live to court.
Are you board certified?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury about that?
I'm board certified as a forensic psychologist from the American Board of Professional Psychology. I've been board certified for well over 30 years.
So there is board certification in the field of psychology?
Definitely.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about your educational background?
Sure. I received my doctorate, my PhD in 1975 from the New School for Social Research in New York City. I was a trainee at Greystone Psychiatric Hospital from 71 to 73. I did my internship with the New Jersey Clinical Internship Program in psychology from 73 to 74, where I trained at the New Jersey State Diagnostic Center. That was the state's forensic center at that time. I did another rotation at Trenton State Prison, and then Trenton Psychiatric Hospital, the Varoom Building Readjustment Unit. Today it's Ann Klein Forensic Center, but it used to be called the Varoom Building. I did some postgraduate training at the New York Center for Psychoanalytic Training from 76 to 78, where I took courses in psychoanalytic theory and therapy. And I had postdoctoral individual supervision from 75 to 77, which is required. I'm licensed, board certified. I am a tenured full professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York, which is part of the City University of New York. And I've been there since 1997.
Can you tell us a little more about that, about your teaching experience there, Doctor?
John Jay College is the criminal justice school for the City University of New York. City University is a mass university. Baruch College is the business school. City College is the liberal arts. And John Jay is really the criminal justice school. I teach undergraduates, master's students, and doctoral students as well. I teach forensic psychology. I'm a full professor of forensic psychology.
And I was just going to ask you that. What type of courses do you teach?
Well, I teach psychopathology, forensic psychology, crime scene analysis, and homicide. I teach a specific course in homicide as well.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about some of the professional activities that you're involved in?
Well, professional activities, well, I've had a lot of clinical experience, but other than my clinical experience, I was elected president of the New Jersey Psychological Association in 1989. Prior to that, I was vice president on the executive board. I was also a member and later chair of the State Ethics Committee from 1982 to 1988. I was also a member of the Forensic Psychology Committee from 1980 to the present. I was president of the New Jersey Psychology Political Action Committee from 91 to 93. I was a member of the Board of Trustees of the New Jersey Psychological Foundation from 96 to 98. I was president of the Society of Psychologists in Private Practice from 2001 to 2002. I've been on the executive board of the Essex Union County Association of Psychologists from 2007 to 2008. I was elected member of the Council of Representatives of the American Psychological Association I did that from 91 to 94. The American Psychological the Council of Representatives of the American Psychological Association is really like their executive committee. And so I did that for several years. I was also treasurer of a division of group psychotherapy and editor of that group psychotherapy bulletin. I was an advisory board member from 83 to 88 of the American College of Forensic Psychology. I was a member of the Board of Trustees of the New Jersey Academy of Psychology. From 1980 to 1987, I was a member and later chair of the Special Classification Review Board at the Adult Diagnostic and Treatment Center at Avenel. I was appointed by the governor of New Jersey and the Commissioner of Corrections. That's the board that evaluates inmates at the ADTC, Sex Offender Unit, and makes recommendations to the parole board for their release. I have been an associate editor of the International Journal of Offender Therapy and Comparative Criminology from 2005, and on the editorial board of the Journal of Threat Assessment from 1999 to 2003.
Doctor, can I just interrupt you on that? When
Sure.
you say that you're the editor of something like that, what does that mean?
I was an associate editor, not the editor. I was an associate editor.
What's the difference?
Well, the editor is in charge of the journal. The editor has an editorial board, and they review papers that are presented for publication. That's basically what you do. They're not, a journal is not limited to the editorial board. Very often they'll send it out to external reviewers as well. Since 2000, I've been co-principal investigator on a major research project with the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit down in Quantico, where we have thousands of extraordinary crimes files we got from the FBI, and we have a major research project where we study extraordinary crime: sexual murder, serial rape, suicide by cop, bias homicide, domestic homicide, and other forms of serious crime, which resulted in some major publications as well. In 2004, myself and 4 of my colleagues at John Jay conducted the research on sexual abuse in the Catholic Church by priests and deacons from 1950 to 2002. The U.S. It was under the auspices of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops reached out to John Jay to do this for a couple of reasons, but one is because we had the FBI project, it was going so well. Let me say one thing. The FBI is a very paranoid organization. They do not like to share their information with others. But they did with us in terms of all their files. We have a room almost the size of this, just filled with files. There was no problem at all in terms of confidentiality or anything like that. So the head of the FBI at that time, the deputy head, left and was hired by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops to conduct this study. And because of the very good experience that we had with the FBI, that's how John Jay was selected to do it. So we did that, and we presented our results to the bishops. I have also been a member of the Senate Task Force on Internet Information for Registered Sex Offenders. I was appointed by the acting governor and the Senate president. What happened was New Jersey needed to redo Megan's Law. That's the community notification of registered sex offenders. But before they did that, they put together a task force. I was on it representing mental health. There was someone from the prosecutor's office, the defense bar, Senator and Verso was on it. It was Megan Kanka's senator. Joe Vitale, who was a senator as well, was on it. There's someone else on it. Someone from Rutgers was on it as well, I think. And we basically rewrote the law, and we held public hearings and so on. And there was a number of reasons why that had to be done, but it's not relevant to anything else. I've been on the Research Advisory Board of the FBI, specifically the National Center for the Analysis of violent crime at the Behavioral Analysis Unit from 2010 to 2012. And I've been a periodic instructor at the FBI since 2008, although I haven't been there in a while. We're all shut down and so on. And I've had a lot of different jobs over the years. Clinical
I was just going to ask you if you could tell the jury about some of your clinical experience.
Clinical experience, right. So in addition to being a tenured professor, I've also had a private practice of clinical and forensic psychology since 1976. I was a consultant at Fair Oaks Hospital, or now it's called Summit Hospital, from 76 to 2000, where I worked with adults and adolescents, and almost exclusively psychological evaluations, very limited therapy, only early on. I've been a consultant at Little Hill Alina Lodge in Blairstown, New Jersey, from 1998 to the present. That's a substance abuse unit, a long-term treatment program for substance abuse. I was also on the staff of the VA Medical Center in East Orange from 1976 to 1999. And there I worked on their alcohol and substance abuse program. I worked on their compensation and pension program. That's when veterans get evaluated for PTSD and that type of thing. But I also founded.
Okay, Florina, what are your thoughts?
You know, he's laying the background to establish that this guy's an expert so that he could give an opinion. It's slow, it's boring, it's a lot of, you know, him patting himself on the back, but that's pretty standard for qualifying an expert. I think a lot of what he's talking about has nothing to do with mental illness evaluations necessarily, but it's part of his background, it's part of his credentials, and this is what they do.
Right. Okay. Well, it's obviously the prosecutor made the tactical decision that he felt that he needed to call these witnesses in rebuttal, which I find interesting. So we'll see how they do. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other end, hopefully through his curriculum vitae. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Retailers, shopping channels, and now even banks have tried canceling myself and MyPillow. Well, during these times, your support has meant everything to us. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you by passing the savings directly on to you. For a limited time, you can get my brand new product, My Slippers, for 50% off. That's the lowest price ever. And remember, My Slippers come with an exclusive 4-layer design. These layers combine to give you amazing comfort and support and help reduce stress on your feet. And with the durable indoor-outdoor sole, you can wear My Slippers anytime, anywhere. I personally guarantee these will be the most comfortable slippers you'll ever own. So go to MyPillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to get My Slippers for 50% off, the lowest price in history. And if you do it right now, I'm going to include a free gift with your purchase. Thank you and God bless.
Never be afraid of your strength, because your body is capable of amazing things. The one they said you shouldn't have, the one driven by a power they can't see. Own your strength and see how far it takes you. Tono, be your strongest.
This is Marianne's first time visiting Paris.
Madame, où allez-vous?
Before Marianne packed her bags, before she attempted her first sentence in French, before she completed her first 15-minute lesson,
Yes.
she downloaded Babbel. Babbel helped unlock her lifelong dream of learning French. She started speaking in just 3 weeks. So when it came time to tell the cab driver to take her to the Hotel Pierre,
J'aimerais aller à l'Hôtel Pierre.
Oh, c'est très bien. J'espère que votre voyage s'est bien passé.
150 language experts and educators designed Babbel to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language. Babbel focuses on natural conversation. You'll remember what you learn, and you can speak and pronounce with confidence. Start speaking a new language in 3 weeks. Try it for free at Babbel.com.
You would think a pan is a pan until Made In came along, and I went, wow, these things are something better.
Those are the pans that we use at Alinea, at one of the best restaurants in the world.
It's built for a home cook like me, but fit for Alinea like him.
Perfect 10, I wanna get in. Can I get down so I can win? I like the way you work it. No diggity. I got to bag it up. Bag it up. I like the way you work it. No diggity. I got to bag it.
I'm Brian Buckmeyer, host of Law and Crime Daily.
Was there blood on the floor? Was he trying to cover something up?
On the scene reporting.
Guilty on all counts.
Straight from the courthouse.
Outside of the courthouse here in Kenosha County.
The most gripping testimony.
He told me I shot him.
Legal expert analysis.
It sends a message to other high-profile creditors.
And monumental verdicts.
Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
This is Law and Crime Daily.
I love my parents. So as they've gotten older, we've had to have some not so fun conversations about their wishes if something were to happen to them.
As an estate planning attorney, most people that would come to my office were looking to create a will for their family, but many couldn't afford the fees.
That's why we started Trust and Will, a modern and affordable approach to estate planning.
Attorney-designed documents, customized by you, all through an easy-to-use website.
The way a will should be. Find the plan that's right for you at trustandwill.com.
I'm Dan Abrams, and you're watching Law and Crime.
Right, we are in the Michael Barisone case, and we have the direct examination of the state's first rebuttal witness, Dr. Louis Schlesinger. And for those of you who are watching previous to this, we were going through a significant amount of his curriculum vitae. We had an entire break, and we're still going, so let's go live.
And a teacher of mine, and he actually became a mentor of mine, and we became colleagues and friends. And his papers, many of which were published in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, are as relevant today as they were then. And they meant so much to me when I trained. I almost memorized them. And I didn't want them to get lost in the archives somewhere. So I put it together into an edited book where the first part is on sexual aggression, the second part on criminal behavior, and the third part of the book is on epilepsy and epileptoid violence. Dr. Revich is also a neurologist, and there's a number of articles in there on what's called paroxysmal manifestations of non-epileptic origin. Sounds fancy, but all it means is an explosion that's really not a result of epilepsy. Sometimes that's hard to differentiate. So that's that book. It was a book of honor, really, to somebody, and it got really, really good reviews, which I was happy about. But I had nothing to do with the content. I just put it together.
Doctor, have you ever written any chapters in any books?
Yes, I've written, I think, about 25 chapters in different people's books. I've been invited to write chapters, and so I think it's around 25 chapters in different books. Some were my own books, many were other people's books as well.
Have you ever published articles in any journals?
Yes, I've published about, I believe it's 43 articles in peer-reviewed scientific journals.
What's a peer-reviewed scientific journal?
A peer-reviewed scientific journal is when you publish an article, research, or it doesn't have to necessarily be research. It could be a theoretical article or a literature review. You send it into a journal, and then you get what's called a blind review. Your identity is removed. All identifiers are removed, and they send it out to 3, 4, or 5 experts in the field to review it, your peers. And then they give feedback, and then you do what you have to do. And so that's what the peer review process is. It's a fairly long process, and in many top journals, there's about a 90% rejection rate. So a lot of people don't realize that. But I've published in all of the top journals, including the American Academy, the Journal of the American Academy of Forensic Psychiatry, Behavioral Science in the Law, Journal of Forensic Sciences, Journal of Family Violence, International Journal of Offender Therapy and Comparative Criminology, and other top journals. And a lot of it is on it's almost all on criminal behavior and extraordinary criminal behavior, sexual murder, serial sexual murder, necrophilia, crime scene staging, undoing, which is symbolic reversal at a homicide crime scene, foreign object insertions, and so on. We recently published, and a lot of this was in collaboration with the FBI, because we have their extraordinary cases from all over the country. And recently, we published an article on confessions. You hear a lot about false confession. There's a lot of research on false confession, but our study was not on false confession, it was on confessions. How do people confess? Because people confess in different ways depending upon their crime.
Doctor, have you ever testified at a trial?
Yes.
What can you estimate approximately how many times you've testified at a trial?
I never kept a record of how many times I've done this, and I'm not good at estimating how many times I've done things, but I've been doing this now 46 years, 100, 200, perhaps 300 times. I just don't know.
And were you qualified as an expert?
Yes.
What are some of the topics that you've testified regarding?
I mean, I've testified in state of mind cases, insanity, diminished capacity, passion provocation, duress, voluntary intoxication, competency to proceed, competency to waive Miranda rights, sentencing issues.
Have you ever been hired? Obviously, you're here testifying as my witness on behalf of the prosecutor today. Have you ever been hired by the defense?
I have. In the first third of my career, I've testified just about exclusively for the defense. I was hired mostly by the defense. In the last third of my career, I've been retained mostly by the prosecutor. And in the middle, it kind of went in different ways.
Have you ever given an opinion that was different from the party or the side that hired you?
Yes.
Can you estimate in the last, call it 10 years, approximately how many times that's happened?
Well, I can tell you the exact time in the past 10 or a little bit longer, 10, maybe almost 15 years, because I have a record of it. And the reason I have a record of it is someone asked me just that question maybe 10, 12 years ago. And they asked me, essentially, did you ever get hired by the prosecutor, for example, and gave an opinion consistent with the defense expert? And I said yes. Now, when you're in court and someone asks you if you ever did something and you say yes, the next question is, how many times did you do it? And I didn't know how many times I did it. So I kept a record then of the times of the various offices that I was retained by, as well as defense.
And so what is the number in the approximately last 10 to 15 years that you've given an opinion different from the party that hired you?
Okay, now you want a number, so I'm going to have to count this. So just give me a second. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, I came up with 30. 30, 30.
Since you started keeping track.
Yeah.
Doctor, do you have any experience with psychological testing?
Yes, I have extensive experience with psychological testing. Psychological testing is very simple. It's simply a way to measure mental process. It's really nothing more difficult and more complicated than that. And it's generally pretty straightforward psychological testing. But I will say, if you don't know what you're doing, you can really mess this up real quickly.
Do you have I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say I taught psychological testing for over 20 years. When I was on the faculty of the New Jersey Medical School, I was on a faculty over there. I don't know if I even mentioned that, but I was on a faculty over there at UMD&J from 77 to 99, I think, or 2000. For 23 years, I taught psychological testing to third-year medical students who rotated through psychiatry service. I also conducted a year-long psychodiagnostic seminar for our doctoral interns who were training over at the VA, and did that for over 20 years as well. In addition, I've published 2 papers on the Rorschach in journals. I also developed my own projective test entitled the Criminal Fantasy Test, and it was really based on, as a projective test, and based on the format of the thematic apperception test, which is simply a test. You show a person a somewhat ambiguous picture, and their job is to create a story based on the picture, and you get kind of their inner fantasies, their inner thoughts, and so on, because sometimes an individual, patient or otherwise, if you ask them a question, they won't tell you directly. But if you give them a test and ask them to create a story, very often it's revealed in that. So I was always impressed with the content that I got from the TAT. So I worked with an artist, a colleague of mine worked with an artist, and we developed a criminal fantasy test of 12 different ambiguous sorts of crimes, and the object was to create a story about it. It was published in 1981 in the Journal of Clinical Psychology. At that time, a number of test publishers wanted me to develop this into a marketable test where you could, sell it and that sort of thing. And I did not do it. I should have done it. It's one of my greatest professional regrets because I think of all of the people that I saw over the past 40 years. But I didn't do it. But anyway, I did that. Also, I discuss psychological testing in several of my books, or many of my books, and how to do it, and what to do, and what not to do, and how to go about it, and so on.
Would you ever render a diagnosis based on a psychological test?
No, you never render a diagnosis based on a psychological test. Psychological testing can support a diagnosis. A diagnosis is made clinically, and it's made based on the clinical criteria, symptoms and behaviors delineated in the DSM-5. Now, the DSM-5, this is a Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's been around since 1952. It goes through different editions. That's how you make a diagnosis, based on symptoms and behavior. Now, what's the value of testing? Well, testing can support a diagnosis or it can go in a different direction and not support a diagnosis. But you never make a diagnosis based on psychological testing. As a matter of fact, if you look at some of the tests that have computer printouts, I don't use those, but a lot of people do, it says very clearly, these are hypotheses, these are suggestions, these are for your consideration. But no, the answer to your question directly, you never make a diagnosis based on psychological testing.
Judge, at this point, I'd like to offer Dr. Schlesinger as an expert in the field of forensic psychology.
Mr. Belinkus, do you have any questions as to the qualifications of the doctor or any opposition?
No, Judge.
All right. All right, based on the background of Dr. Schlesinger, as outlined in his testimony, I do find pursuant to Rule 702 of the New Jersey Rules of Evidence that he qualifies as an expert, and he may, in forensic psychology, and may testify in the form of opinion. I make this determination based on his education, his knowledge, skill, experience, and training, and extensive work history. All right, very good. He'll qualify as an expert. Go ahead, Mr. Shellhorn.
Doctor, is there any difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist in a forensic setting?
Yes, there is a difference. There's a difference in training. A psychiatrist after college goes to medical school and studies medicine, and then he or she does a 4-year residency in psychiatry, where they study, diagnosis, DSM, and usually treatment with medication. Not all the time, but usually treatment with medication and some psychotherapy. A psychologist after college goes to graduate school for 4, 5, 6 years, depending upon their program and how they get through it, and gets training in behavioral science and psychopathology, diagnosis, evaluation, and testing and treatment and so on. And then a psychologist does a clinical internship, a pre-doctoral internship, and then he does at least a year of postdoctoral supervision or more. Psychologists and psychiatrists train together. I mean, I've been trained by psychiatrists. Dr. Revich was a mentor of mine. He was he's a psychiatrist. He was my main teacher. And so I've been trained by psychiatrists, but I taught at the medical school for years. I taught undergraduates, that's medical students, they're called undergraduates in medicine for years. I taught interviewing with them, testing, I said, with the third-year residents, and with third-year medical students, and with psychiatry residents, I supervised them with their experience at the
The prosecution's first rebuttal witness, Dr. Louis Schlesinger, has now been qualified as an expert witness. Good time to take a break. We'll be back on the other end with more of his testimony. Please stay with us.
If you've ever considered getting a walk-in tub, we have great news. For a limited time, when you purchase a Safe Step walk-in tub, we'll upgrade your order to include a free shower package. Yes, a free shower package. With Safe Step's shower package, you can conveniently shower in your brand new walk-in tub. And if you call today, you'll also receive $1,600 off your entire order. Now, you can finally enjoy the best of both worlds with the therapeutic benefits of a warm, soothing bath that can help increase mobility, relieve pain, boost energy, and improve sleep. Or if you prefer, you can take a safe, refreshing shower all in one amazing product. Call today to receive your free shower package, plus $1,600 off the price of your brand new Safe Step walk-in tub.
That's 1-800-868-9326. Call today.
Letting go of my diamond ring was really hard, but selling it for the best price was simple with Worthy.com. They evaluate your jewelry to help you understand what it's actually worth. Then they auction it to their network of professional buyers. Get more for your jewelry with Worthy.com.
It wasn't Meta's fault that yo-yo dieting failed her. Calibrate works with her biology to end an unsustainable cycle. Medication, coaching, lifestyle tweaks. Lose at least 10% of your body weight or your money back. Join Calibrate.com.
You spend 1/3 of your life in bed. That's why at Bull & Branch, we hold ourselves to a higher standard. Our bedding is 100% organic, toxin-free, and fair trade certified. It makes a difference you'll feel and offers a better way to live in this world. Start with our best-selling signature sheets made to get softer with every wash. Visit bowlandbranch.com.
Today I'm trying out the Everlywell Food Sensitivity Test. I decided to get this test because I think that there may be some foods I'm sensitive to that are affecting my stomach. After collecting my sample, which was super easy by the way, I sealed it in the prepaid sleeve and shipped it off to the lab. It was much easier than I expected. I received an email on my phone that my results were ready, and just like that, I figured out that there are 13 foods that I'm sensitive to. Getting insight on what may be causing my stomach pain feels so good.
So I have peppers, tomatoes, parsley.
What's that one?
That's my credit. It gets lots of sun, water, and I even sing to it every day. But it never grows.
You need Credit Sesame. With Credit Sesame, you get your free score right away and see steps you can take to improve it. Daily score refreshes to help track your progress, and they'll even pay you for growing your score.
Credit Sesame? Wow. Maybe I could start growing my savings there.
Get your free credit score today.
I'm Jesse Weber, and you're watching Law and Crime.
All right, interesting on the rebuttal witness. He's being asked questions about direct examination by the prosecutor, Dr. Louis Schlesinger, who's the witness on the stand. It was Dr. Simmering, who was the defense expert. Let's go live to court to see what he has to say.
Cases. I've worked opposite Dr. Simmering on cases. I referred cases to Dr. Simmering. He's referred cases to me. I have the highest regard for Dr. Simmering. But I disagree with him in this case, but that has nothing to do with my high regard for Dr. Simmering.
Have you agreed with him in certain cases?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And have you disagreed with him in certain cases?
Yes.
Do you know how much time you spent with Michael Barisone in this case?
Yes. I spent 13.25 hours, 13 and a quarter hours.
And I think I meant to ask you, and I'm not sure if I did, were you aware of Dr. Simmering's diagnoses in this case?
Yes.
And that's why you said you disagree with him in this case?
Correct.
Now, you indicated that you met with Michael Barisone and that he looked different when you met him.
Yes.
What was his demeanor when you met with him?
Well, when I first met with him, he was very, very tearful. I mean, he was crying uncontrollably. He almost at times was hard to console him. He was very upset about the whole thing. And if I could just refer to my report, yeah, he was tearful, emotional, crying. He became animated at times, particularly when discussing Lauren and Robert Goodwin and the whole circumstances with respect to that. He would stand up, get animated, and so on. He was very emotional about it. And yeah, he did that. But he calmed down and he participated fine. He was cooperative completely, answered my questions, except for some resistance towards the end.
Now, how would you describe his ability to recount certain things that happened?
Michael's memory as to what happened was excellent. I spent hours with him, I think it's over 6 hours, talking about what had happened. He gave me a day-by-day account of the activities that happened. Sometimes it was an hour-by-hour account. Now, occasionally he would say, well, on July 24th, I woke up and I did this. Oh, by the way, there's something happened on July 23rd, and then he would go back to that. But that's normal. That's how people remember things and recall things. But he remembered in great detail everything. I was very impressed by his memory.
How would you describe his concentration during the times that you met with him?
When I was with him, his concentration was basically okay. I was with him for hours and hours at a time. Now, he was emotional. He was crying and so on, but he was okay. His concentration was basically okay.
What would you say was the most outstanding clinical feature that you observed?
It was his crying and his being so upset about the whole thing. He's extremely emotional and animated. That was the most outstanding feature. Other than that, no, he was pleasant. He was pleasant to deal with, pleasant to talk to. He was very appropriate and nothing bizarre or unusual in his demeanor other than what I just said or in what he said.
Now, you described in general what a forensic evaluation or examination entails. How do you look at criminal behavior?
Criminal behavior is best understood in 3 stages. The pre-crime context. Criminal behavior doesn't come out of nowhere. There's a context to understand it. Then there's the actual offense itself, and then there's the post-crime behavior. And that's really the best way to understand, from my perspective, from a psychological perspective, criminal behavior.
And how do you learn that?
Well, you learn that from the discovery. You don't learn that from what the defendant tells you. You learn that from the discovery. I should say I should correct myself, a very nuanced thing that I just want to say a little bit different. Yes, he told me what happened on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour, sometime basis, but I want to emphasize that's his perception of what happened. I don't know if everything he told me is exactly correct, but that's what his perception was of it. But yes.
And I think you described earlier, Doctor, you started to talk about the way memory works. And can you explain a little bit more about that in light of your last answer?
Well, memory is not, there's no video camera inside here that makes a videotape of what goes on. Memory is a constructive process. We construct our memory. If somebody asks you, what did you have for breakfast yesterday? You'll probably give them an answer, but it's constructed. It's not that you necessarily have an exact memory of it. It's, you have all the time what you think, and then you construct memory. That's the way human memory works. And you can have an event. I mean, you see this in legal practice all the time, not necessarily criminal, say an accident. 3 people look at an accident and 3 people give statements. Are those 3 statements going to be exact? No, they're not going to be exact. That's how they perceive it. People perceive things differently based on many factors.
And if people perceive things differently, does that mean that one or more of them is having a delusion?
Absolutely not.
Doctor, you indicated that you, as part of your examination, gave the defendant some psychological tests.
Yes.
And I think you outlined those beginning on page 50 in your report.
Okay, just give me a second, please. Yes.
But before we get there, can I ask you, how do you choose what tests you're going to use in a forensic examination?
Yeah. I give psychological testing to I won't say every single person, but I would say 99.99% of the people I give a standard battery of psychological testing to. I give the Rorschach, the thematic apperception test, the Bender Gestalt, projective figure drawings, the MMPI-2, and a version of the Wechsler scales. That's an intelligence test. If the case requires, I'll add additional tests. Tests for malingering mental disorders, for example, tests for malingering memory, for example, and other types of tests as well. But I give that standard battery to everybody. Why? I just want to get a measure. I want to get a baseline measure of the individual. And when I start my evaluation in a forensic case, I start with psychological testing. I don't start with, what did you do? What happened? No, I start with that because it's sort of a breaks the ice, you know, and some simple tests, and it's a rapport builder and this type of thing. So that's what I do.
All right, Florina, so an extensive background in the CV, impressive credentials, judge allows him to testify as an expert, you know, and we can have experts, we know this as lawyers, that have the greatest credentials in the world, but they can't deliver the message and aren't affable and can't deliver complex concepts to a jury. He seems to be doing very well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's always helpful when the expert is also a college professor, and Schlesinger teaches at John Jay College here in New York City. And as someone who is an effective professor, they're usually good at storytelling and good at explaining complicated concepts in easy to understand, simple terms. I think he's starting to get into that just now as he's starting to get into his opinion. And I expect that he'll do a nice job of explaining these concepts simply in a way that the jury's going to be able to understand.
Yes, definitely. I think that we have to be cautious to see what it is that he testifies to. I think he'll do well. It'll be interesting to see how he responds to the cross-examination, to what extent that the defense attorney is going to cross-examine a witness with this level of credentials and ability to communicate. Florina, I want to thank you very much for the time we have together is now past. That's it for me. I'll be back next Monday from 12 to 3, but don't go anywhere. We have Internet TV next. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Be well.
Beer drip. It's a thing. This isn't a salt shaker. Not anymore, at least. Thanks to Scotch Porter's beard care products. Their quality ingredients keep my beard flake-free and my confidence on point.
These 3 little sticks are game changers.
It is what I call magic in a stick. Boomstick Trio.
Glow, glimmer, and color.
Boom Glow. It feels so good on your skin.
Boomstick color, blush, your lipstick, and any other color you want. Stuff is super creamy.
The Boomstick Glimmer, it just feels special.
It is a nice shimmer.
I look like me, but I've got a glow.
What are my stats? Well, my investments are tracking up, my house will be paid off in 12 years, and I'll retire at 61. Take control of your finances with Quicken. Try risk-free for 30 days.
Suffer from pain? You're not alone. Omega XL can help. For years, Robin lived with severe pain in her ankles, knees, and back.
I had so much pain in my knees that stooping was not one of the things that I could do anymore. I just thought it was age because I've gotten older.
Then she found Omega XL, a powerful natural supplement. 30 years of research show it relieves joint and muscle pain caused by inflammation. It's small, easy to swallow with no fishy aftertaste. Omega XL, a unique extract from the green lip mussels of New Zealand.
The moment I started using Omega XL, there was such a change and such a difference. I didn't realize that it was happening until I was squatting down, till I was running up and down the stairs. It has revived me.
Why struggle with pain in your back, neck, knees, or elbows? Turn to the powerful solution that millions have trusted to relieve their pain and get their life back. Omega XL, the one-of-a-kind natural supplement that helps reduce joint pain due to inflammation. Join the many Omega XL success stories.
I found this product, and it's called Omega XL. I mean, I can't tell you how great I feel. I mean, this works.
Because I'm taking Omega XL, it allows me to live life to the fullest.
Omega XL has given me my life back.
Omega XL works.
I want anybody who's having pain in their knees, their back, your joints, try it. I'm telling you about it. I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life if you'll try it.
Call now or go to omegaxl.com/Robin. And when you buy one bottle of Omega XL, get another absolutely free. That's 2 bottles for only $39.95. Order right now and we'll also include a bottle of Vitamin XL D3 for whole body health absolutely free on your first order. We're so confident in the effectiveness of Omega XL that we back it up with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Order now and get 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Act now.
With Bonfire, you can easily fundraise by selling custom shirts online, upload your artwork, or create a design right on our website. In these unique times, you can still make a difference. Fundraise with custom shirts today on bonfire.com.
Everything you've seen me do was made possible by what you don't see. Because when you're not looking, I go to work. Strength isn't a given. It's grown. It's earned and tested. We all have the strength to see what's possible. It's up to us to unlock it. Tonal, be your strongest.
We started Trust and Will to make the process of getting a will easy and affordable.
Legally valid documents designed by estate planning attorneys and customized by you through an easy-to-use website.
The way a will should be. Find the plan that's right for you at trustandwill.com.
I'm Brian Buck.